And we'll get started with the Coastal Protection Restoration Authority Board meeting Wednesday, April 16th, 2025, at approximately 9:30 in the South Building, LaBelle Room, 617 North Third Street, Baton Rouge. And we'd like to start off with a call to order and a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much, and with that, Ms. Amy, if you could have the roll call.
Chairman Dove,
Present.
Secretary Bosworth, Mr. McMillan.
Here.
Mr. Bourne.
Here.
Mr. Burris. Mr. Alford. President Jewell. Congressman Dow. Mr. Jordan.
Here.
Mr. Bourgeois. Mr. Hidalgo. Mr. Carville. Mr. Lane. Representative Zerine.
Here.
Mr. Senator Hiskins.
Okay, we have 9 and a quorum, and a couple of people may have been hung up on I-10. They had a pretty bad wreck, I believe, so I know Mr. Lane said he was coming. With that, and I want to let all the members know, since we're in a different room, and the mics will remain on high. So, you know, whenever y'all feel, and whatever you say is recorded, so. And approval of the, let me see. A motion to approve the agenda. We have a motion, we have a second by Bill Hidalgo, all in favor? Okay, and then we have a motion to approve the minutes. We have a motion by Mr. Hidalgo and Mr. Jordan. All in favor? Any old business? Any of the members have old business announcements? Any members? Seeing none. At this time, we're gonna go ahead and get started on the implementation update with Glenn today, but I'd go ahead and I'd like to announce the deputy director of CPRA, Mr. Clay Parker, has just joined the team under Glenn Leday. Welcome aboard. So you got another guy to call now. And so Glenn, Clay will make sure he gets y'all his contact numbers and everything if you hadn't already got them. A little background on Clay: he's got a civil engineer. He's got a degree in civil engineering and law, so he's coming out a little bit of both. So welcome aboard, Clay. And with that, I'll go ahead and give it to Glenn Leday with the CPRA Executive Director. Please.
Thank you, Chairman Dove, members of the board. Appreciate the opportunity to do the implementation update, and just also want to say congratulations to Clay Parker. Excited about his onboarding, and he started last Monday and jumped right in. So excited to work with him. He came over from GOCA. He's going to be updating you on one of the projects he worked on over there with the ENR and the Drive Initiative. So really excited about that. And so right before we jump into the implementation update, did want to give you a quick announcement and ask Mr. Hidalgo to talk a little bit about it. You know, we're monitoring the Mississippi River high water. Obviously, we'll monitor that over the next several weeks and months. The Corps is doing a great job in that, updating us every day. With that, you know, we are doing all the preparations necessary, working with the levee districts and the Corps on those efforts. But with that, Mr. Hidalgo is just going to talk a little bit about the closure of Bayou Chene to protect the communities in his region.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be able to talk about Bayou Chene, okay, in this manner. Monday morning at 6 a.m., we started the pumping operation to dewater the barge, okay, or the gate. That began at 6. At 7 o'clock, the gate was floating. At 8 o'clock, the gate was in the receiving structure. At noon, the gate was hard down on the sill. So total closure in about 6 hours time, as compared to 10, 12 days in the past when we did it in an emergency basis. And quite a bit difference in the cost, okay? I think someone mentioned that to me the other day. I was talking to Gordy and he said, yeah, what it cost, 10, 11, 12,000, $12 million. Yeah. So that versus a tug and a couple of people and, so the operation cost is really down. But, so successfully closed, immediately had a differential from the protected side to the flood side of a half a foot of water. And we understand the water is going to come in fast, and so it was important that we did it as early as we could in order to try to take it when it was in a calm situation. Thank you very much.
And may I add, like, it took a few years and Bill and others have pushed for it and really, we finally made it happen after quite a few years. And now imagine they closed it in what, 2 hours, 3 hours versus weeks to put a barge in place. And another thing is, once the water's down, they can reopen it. And the other time when they put the barge in place, if there was any chance of the water coming back up, they kept the canal closed. So, and remember, you're swinging a 420-foot gate. It's longer than a football field is what Bill and them are swinging and sinking in place to stop the backwater flooding in the Terrebonne and about 5 other parishes in St. Mary and Lafourche and other ones and Assumption. And so great job. And Census to St. Mary Levy Board has done a wonderful job getting that floodgate built in operating order.
Thank you. And of course, there was a lot of preparation, lining up tugs and people and things like that happened all last week. So, but it was able to have been accomplished in 1 day's time or less than half a day's time. So, a win-win for us.
Yeah, and also, Bill and them, they notify all of the marine, different companies in the marine business, the shipyards, and others, they can get their equipment out before they close it for a period of time. So it's very well coordinated. We didn't get one complaint from any industry or nothing that it put them in a bind. So great job.
And just to expand on that a little bit, it does take that coordination with the Corps of Engineers, with the U.S. Coast Guard, and with the port in Market City. So all people have to be notified that we're closing a waterway that's used every day for commercial reasons. So all that's got to be done in preparation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Allen.
Yeah, appreciate that update. It's always great to showcase the projects that we've constructed and provide flood risk reduction for these communities.
Especially when they work.
Right. Well, with that, we'll jump in. And so, as we always do, we want to start off with a list of projects that we have. And so, as you can see there, what we update you on every month is right now, at CPRA, we have always at least over 100 active projects. This month, we've got 106 active projects, 38 in construction, another 64 in engineering design, and 4 in planning. We also have a number of planning activities that we're coordinating with the Corps on there, not shown here, that go on some of the large-scale federal planning opportunities. But with that, what's in those numbers is 2 projects that were actually completed. Projects like the Lower Lafitte Tidal Protection and the Rockefeller Shoreline Protection Project that we'll actually update you today on. Those projects were constructed and completed. So what they'll do is they move off of the table as a completed project into operation and maintenance. We've got a number of projects that are moving from E&D to construction. projects like the Port Fourchon Shoreline Protection Phase 1, as well as the Breton Land Bridge Marsh Creation, which is part of the annual plan, that presentation today. Those projects are actually being advertised and bid right now, so they're moving from that E&D column to construction. And we've got another set of projects like the Mark Hansen to the Gulf improvements, Reach H2, H3, as well as Reach flood wall that are being awarded with President Alford and TLCD. And so those are moving from E&D into construction as well. So always excited to see that. We've got a number of other Mark Hansen to the Gulf projects with Mr. Bourgeois and as well as TLCD that will move later this year. And then we have projects on the restoration side, like the St. Catherine Island Marsh Creation and Shoreline Protection that will be bid in the next 6 months. So those, just a couple of things that we'll be featuring over the next several months that are critical that will showcase you. With that, we'll jump in. We'll feature some of the shoreline protection and restoration projects that had a ton of activity over this last month. So the first of those, which is really a big component of our annual plan, is something that we've talked a lot about. It's that shoreline protection and stabilization work in Cameron Parish. This is really kind of broad in the region, but today we wanted to focus on the Reach that is part of that Rockefeller shoreline stabilization effort. Been working closely with Wildlife and Fisheries on that, as well as Cameron Parish. And so this is really a great effort. Want to showcase the video that our outreach and engagement team took of the recently completed work there. And so you can see this project is approximately 1.2 miles of additional shoreline protection. It's really this kind of program of shoreline protection efforts that have been going on for quite some time. We had that opportunity to update the board last fall when we were down in Lake Charles. And so it's a phenomenal project. You can see the success there, the shoreline that's growing behind the rock system as that sediment transport takes place, and then it's protected from the ongoing wave activity in the Gulf. So just really a great effort. That project was just recently completed. It was funding provided by CPRA with technical support that was given to Cameron Parish for these efforts, and they constructed it. And so this particular reach was almost 4,000 linear feet of rock that added on to the protection system. And so just to kind of give you a snapshot just of the work at the Rockefeller area, you can see sort of the ongoing progress that's been made. You see ME18 there, as well as ME37 that was completed previously. ME35 was the reach that was just completed. And then ME41 is the additional effort that the state, as well as the Corps of Engineers, is going to be constructing through the Southwest Coastal Federal effort. And so the state of Louisiana is designing that effort, working with the Corps to go to construction this fall on ME41, which will provide up to 3 miles of shoreline protection. So it's really phenomenal. We've been working with Neil McMillan and Federal Affairs Group to try to get additional appropriations with the Corps to continue that ME41 line to complete the Rockefeller section. So I know Mr. Bosworth, you and your staff will be pleased when we get there, and I'm excited to say that we're on our way. So really great work there, and excited to showcase the completion of ME35. And then just to kind of showcase, I talk always about partnerships, and so it takes a lot of groups to build these big projects. You can see the funding and the amount of work that we've done to leverage all of the funding sources. And so we've got CPRA funds from both Restore as well as state surplus. We've got Cameron Parish funds from both local funds as well as Restore. Calcasieu Parish even threw in money, over $2 million, and then we had DENR funds as well. And so all of those funding sources have been leveraged to try to build this program. And then now we're using GOMESA with the federal appropriations to build that ME41 component. So it's really exciting. You can see all the public entities that have been involved. The private industry's been involved as well on the engineering design and study side with Vistamaker, HDR, and rigid contractors. So it really takes all of these partnerships, both private and public sector, to build these large, complex systems. And excited to see this component being completed today.
Yes.
And so with that, I want to transition to the next project. And so this is another project that we've showcased to the board last year. It's another sort of programmatic project. And just to touch on that for a second, we had the large-scale marsh creation effort that was finished that we updated the board on a couple of times last year. That was a QIPR project with NRCS, the state and NRCS built, really massive right there off of I-10 in St. Charles Parish by the Bonnie Carey Spillway. But today we're building the state component to add to the shoreline protection efforts over there. And so this is really exciting because it's another system that was built with CIAP, QIPR, State Surplus, and GOMESA, and really phenomenal to see it being completed to provide restoration and protection for that entire region there at Destrehan and St. Charles Parish. So with that, we've got some really good video footage of the ongoing construction right there, right off of Interstate 10 along the Lake Pontchartrain shoreline. And so you can see the Laura Crosby team is dredging access for the rock dike that'll be constructed there to provide protection for that shoreline and connect to the previously constructed CIAP and QIPR shoreline protection projects. And so you can see that team dredging that access there. They are continuing to maintain that access route, and you'll see here in a second, they've started laying down the geotextile fabric and placing the rock to initiate that work. So it's exciting to see that get started, and that is being done by the Laura Crosby team right here in Louisiana. So with that, just want to mention that this is another kind of multi-phase project as I talked about, but this particular reaches over 2 miles. It's approximately a little bit less than $25 million, $24.7 million to be exact. You can see again, it's really trying to build up that fund to be able to bring this project to construction and bid. And so we've put together both GOMESA as well as 3 years of surplus to be able to build this $25 million shoreline protection project. And this helps to finish that programmatic effort right there at La Branch. And so this construction will be ongoing throughout this year to try to get to completion in the late fall, early winter. And so just exciting to see that work there. And we'll continue to update you when we get to the completion of construction. And we've got another couple of updates here before we move into some of the activities that have gone on over the last month. The first is a really big announcement. I know we've talked a lot about this project over the last year, but happy to announce that CPRA has moved into the pre-construction phase of work for the construction management at risk for the Chandelier Island Restoration Project. And so if you remember, this is going to be our biggest barrier island restoration in the state's history. Over 13 miles of this system will be rebuilt, as well as New Harbor Island. Just phenomenal, the work that the team and all of the Louisiana TAPE partners have done, particularly DOI, to get this project to where it is. And so we're happy to announce that Weeks Marine has been selected as the Seymour contractor. They will immediately be brought on board to work on the pre-construction phase to provide constructability, cost estimating, and a number of other services with the CPRA design team. And so we'll be working with them to try to figure out the best way to construct this island. It probably require a number of different phases of work. We've got obviously sensitive habitat out there. Wildlife has done a phenomenal job of helping to identify that. We updated you on that last year. So we'll continue to provide updates, but big announcement today. Excited to see Weeks Marine brought on board. Chairman Doe.
No, like I said, what a great move. I want to thank Glenn and his team and the CPRA folks and Weeks Dredging, working with everyone and the other bidder. And with the other request for proposal, I should say. And what a great job on Chandelier, but we still got a lot of island left to go, but it's a good start. We want to thank all our federal partners in it also.
Thank you, Chairman. Yep, excited to see that. We'll continue to update you as the months go on to get to construction. And then with that last project update today is a partner highlight. Always want to highlight our partners. In this particular case, it is the Corps of Engineers and Plaquemines Parish government. And so what we have is a restoration project that's actually mitigation for the New Orleans to Venice levee system. And so that is the Fritchie Marsh mitigation project that's being constructed to mitigate for the impacts for that NOV NFL levee system in Plaquemines Parish. And so we've got some video footage of the work that was started there in St. Tammany Parish. That restoration of Fritchie Marsh is critical to restoring that habitat. I know Chairman Krieger is here with the levee district, excited to see that work that everybody knows needs to be done in Fritchie Marsh. So really exciting to see this kickstart. You can see the contractor there is doing the work to build the containment dikes, and they will be dredging in Lake Pontchartrain and hydraulically pumping material to restore some of those sections of marsh there in Fritchie. And so really a great effort. This is funded 100% by the Corps of Engineers federally as part of that NOV levee system. That project should be completed later this year. With that, the Corps of Engineers will continue to monitor to make sure they achieve the success criteria before they turn that over to the state as well as Plaquemines Parish for the operation and maintenance of that mitigation project. But just wanted to update you on that. I know we've got folks in the St. Tammany region that are excited to see that work move forward. And then with that, we always have a lot going on at CPRA, a lot of great stuff in the works. The first of that is Love the Boot. We were excited last week to complete the Love the Boot week. It was really a fantastic week. We got to pick up trash around the water campus as well as the Nicholson corridor. Myself and my son joined. We had a fantastic day. It was a fantastic weekend. And so I was excited. Secretary Bosworth challenged me on Love the Boot, and I got to move it over to Mr. Burris. So excited to see all the agencies take part in this, and thanks to Mr. Burris and his boss for leading this campaign. But it's great to keep Louisiana beautiful and do the work that we need to do our part to pick up trash throughout the state. So special thanks to our lead on this, Jessica Diaz, who organized this for our team, and all of the staff that showed up. Another really big event that took place over this last month is the Port Wonder ribbon cutting. And so this is really a phenomenal event. I'll let Mr. Bosworth talk a little bit about it, but this was funded with the help of the Louisiana TIG and CPRA and our federal partners. So Mr. Bosworth, I know you were there. Say a few words if you don't mind.
Sure, thanks, Glenn. This is a really exciting project for the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. As you said, it's funded by Louisiana TIG, so we thank them for picking this project out of a slew of many that they could have chosen. It really is a partnership between the TIG, the City of Lake Charles, Wildlife and Fisheries Foundation, and CPRA. And so it's children and the Louisiana Children's Museum, Southwest Louisiana. And so for those of you that don't know, this is a brand new children's museum and nature and science center, all under one roof right there in Lake Charles. We had a ribbon cutting on March 20th, and I believe that they will be open officially before Easter. And so
Awesome.
Everybody go down there and check it out. It's good. It's a real gem down there in Lake Charles.
Thank you. Yeah, no, our staff and your staff have been working hard to get that open. And as you said, it's just the Wildlife and Fisheries Center is over 5,700 square feet. It's got saltwater, freshwater tanks, a whole number of other touch pools, all kind of great things that we're excited to open to the public. So really big thanks to the LA TIG there for funding. In addition to that, we've got sort of a ton of activity there in the St. Charles, St. John region with the Corps of Engineers West Shore Lake Pontchartrain project, as well as the mitigation, the Maurepas Swamp restoration. And so we have started working with all of those entities, with the two parishes, as well as the Pontchartrain Levee District and the Corps, on town halls that will happen periodically to inform the public about all of this activity. And so our staff work with those entities. They had a town hall in St. John Parish, went really well. You can see the photos there from the public. Really good attendance. The public is excited about the project, but want to know more about all of the construction activities. And as well, St. John's got a master drainage plan they're working on. So really good efforts there. We'll keep you updated as that progresses. And then with that, we also have the Governor's Advisory Commission, chaired by Mr. Alfred. You can see Mr. Alfred there talking about the efforts that have gone on over the last year I was able to give a presentation on the annual plan and all of the activities that took place at CPRE the last 12 months. We had good updates on industry from Coast Builders, GNO Inc., as well as Wildlife and Fisheries on our joint partnerships. And so really good activities there. Stephen Swiber, the Chief Resiliency Officer of the state, also joined us and updated us on the resiliency task force work that's been ongoing. And we have a seat there as well on that board. So we'll keep you updated and look forward to the next Governor's Advisory Commission meeting. And then just to finish up, quick dates just to be aware of. First is Coastal Day, always an exciting day at the legislature now that the legislative session is in full swing. That will be Monday, May 12th. We've got networking opportunities. We have a host of updates both on the engineering, design, construction side, partner updates. We've got the address from the governor in the press room, and then all followed by the crawfish boil in the Pentagon Barracks. So it's a really exciting day. And just keep that on your calendar, Monday, May 12th. And then finally, State of the Coast is the big coastal conference every other year put on by CRCL. And so we've got that the following week, May 20th through the 22nd at the Memorial Convention Center in New Orleans. So really a host of events that will be taking place in May as long as the legislative session. So really exciting time. And then we've got the board meeting that month as well. So a lot of activity over those couple of weeks, and excited to see everyone join us then. And then finally, I'll be happy to answer any questions, but feel free to connect with us on social media. But just an exciting time this spring with all the activity in the coast. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Mr. Alf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Glenn, I just wanted to congratulate you. Did a great job at our meeting. And I know last year was kind of hectic. We're going to have that for everybody in here, more quarterly meetings, and make sure that we do that. But thanks for your explanation on, we sort of had an open meetings type meeting, and everybody got to discuss issues or problems with any of the projects. And I thought it went good. And thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Any other comments, questions? Oh, Mr. Boucher.
Just a quick comment, a great presentation, and I really look at the, one of the first slides, the active projects. Been doing this quite a while. We've always been over 100, for as long as I can remember. I wonder what that would look like. And so sometimes I think we get too close to the trees to see the forest, but it would be interesting to look back over time, because it's so long to track all of these things and see with such a high level of activity by CPRA. So just thanks for that, and it's just kind of an observation as we run into it.
Yeah, thank you.
Seeing no other comments, questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Glenn, great presentation. And next, the update on the DRIVE initiative. Mr. Clay Parker, the Deputy Director of CPRA. Mr. Parker.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for those words of welcome earlier. Looking forward to working with each and every one of you. And so I find my presentation here, we'll get started. But some of you may remember me from my time in the Governor's Office of Coastal Activities. Give y'all an update on the Department of Energy and Natural Resources reorganization that we termed the DRIVE initiative around this time last year. So we'll reminisce one more time, if y'all don't mind obliging me here. We'll discuss the reorganization plan and the update on the DRIVE initiative as it has gone to some legislation. So we'll go through a little bit of background, and then we'll talk about the legislation and looking forward. So a little bit of background, this reorganization was started back in the early 2024 with an executive order, JML 24-13. Its intention is to enhance the efficiency of the agency, improve coordination between DENR and the agencies it interacts with, and strengthen resilience in the sense of the resilience of the department, setting it up for success in the future. Throughout, the department has attempted to engage stakeholders with as much transparency as possible, get as much feedback as possible, and I know they are intending to continue that feedback loop through the legislation we'll talk about in a minute. The department is terming this phase 5 of the reorganization, which is essentially going to implementation of the structure. Its emphasis is going to be on sustainable change, like we talked about, in the sense of setting the agency up for success in the future, clarifying the authority of the different roles within the agency, and then ensuring the agency can adapt through the future. They're going to accomplish that through legal alignment, through some of the bills that we'll talk about in a minute, internally through clear task assignments and their budget structure, and then ensuring long-term continuity. As we developed this reorganization plan that I assisted the department on, essentially 3 areas of focus arose: the laws that the agency has to work with and the regulations, the people or the management of the agency and how to develop job descriptions and task assignments to reach the outcomes the agency wants. And then the budget, defining scope of responsibilities in alignment with the agency's strategic goals, and then aligning individual roles with department objectives. A foundational step of that for the agency as they go forward is going to be aligning job descriptions with what the employees will actually do every day. They're going to work with the civil service to implement that as they go forward once the legislation is finished, to develop a coordinated solution to that issue. So now let's jump into the meat and potatoes of the reorganization plan. I would say one of the cornerstones, especially when you're concerned with the department, the cornerstone is going to be what's termed the Natural Resources Commission. There's a graphic of it here on this slide. It would be 7 members that are the agency heads of the different natural resources agencies, along with Economic Development and the Public Service Commission, and the Department of Revenue as well. This commission is going to be intended to provide strategic level coordination amongst the agencies as issues arise. And it also provides an opportunity for the legislature to be able to engage with the agencies directly in situations where the legislature may otherwise desire to form a task force or a special committee that can actually engage with this committee directly. It'll provide intergovernmental affairs and federal response capability, and it will also provide a communication strategy for public outreach, essentially a place where the public can interact with these agencies at a strategic level in open meetings. A little bit more on the commission. It's designed to be flexible and adapt to regulatory and environmental changes. It's going to be staffed by the department through the Office of the Natural Resources Commission, which we'll talk about in a minute. That'll be overseen by the Deputy Secretary of the department. It's intended to have quarterly meetings, so a regular meeting schedule, and like we said, provide oversight and legislative alignment, coordinate a federal response, and increased accountability in the sense of the public being able to come to these meetings and engage with the agencies directly. Now let's transition more to the department itself. The department is going to be, if the legislation passes as it is currently in form, it would be renamed the Department of Conservation and Energy. This structure that you see here is essentially the structure that is in the reorganization bill. 2 of these offices, the Office of General Counsel, which I think the agency intends to call Office of Legal Services at this point, and the Office of the Natural Resources Commission are going to be sub-offices of the Office of the Secretary. And that will actually result in a reduction in offices for the agency versus what it has now. So this structure is designed to streamline management of the agency, provide an emphasis on fiscal responsibility and transparency, and then provide vision and mission for the agency going forward, essentially putting each of these functions into its own individual bucket. So let's jump into the offices. Like we talked about, the Office of Natural Resources Commission will provide direct support for the concept of the Natural Resources Commission. It will house commission affairs, which will engage with the commission directly, intergovernmental affairs, and it will also house communication support. Intergovernmental affairs in concept is divided into state and local affairs and also federal affairs. So it's going to provide strategic coordination through the commission amongst the agencies. There will be an opportunity for the agencies to work together through detailed employees, provide a coordinated federal response, as well as, like we talked about earlier, the opportunity for investigative and research functions which would otherwise be taken up through task forces or special committees. And that will be housed, like we said, within the Executive Office of the Secretary. It will be a sub-office overseen by the Deputy Secretary through statutory authority. The Office of the Secretary will stay mostly as it is today. The divisions will be executive. The oil field site restoration function will remain there, as well as the oil spill coordinator's office. It's going to provide overall management support for the agency, direct support for the secretary, and then through the oil spill coordinator's office, be able to provide emergency response functions. The Office of Administration is, it is not an official office at this time. It will be constituted within the department under the undersecretary. It'll provide centralized planning and strategic support from a financial perspective. It will also oversee the Natural Resources Trust Authority, which is an initiative of the department that was passed through the legislature last session and implemented back in October and November of 2024. So those functions will be focused around financial, human resources, and also strategic planning. Office of Legal Services, like we discussed earlier, it will be housed within the Executive Office of the Secretary. It is designed to provide agency-wide legal support and divided into regulatory, enforcement, and resources divisions. The idea being that attorneys within the Office of Legal Services will actually have the opportunity to specialize in different areas of the law that they're interested in. Now, the offices that the public will be interacting with a lot, first, the Office of Permitting and Compliance. The permitting functions of the agency are spread amongst some of the offices currently. The design behind this office is to centralize and streamline that permitting process into engineering, ecology, and geology divisions, and put all of the agency's permitting into one office, a one-stop shop. And actually the legislation for this session, one of the bills that we'll talk about in a minute, will provide the public an opportunity to get expedited processing through the Office of Permitting and Compliance. The Office of State Resources, this will be achieved through a consolidation of the Office of Mineral Resources and the Office of Land and Water within the department. Essentially, it is intended to provide management of state-owned lands and water resources. So you'll have the permitting office, you'll have the management office, which will oversee land and mineral lease management, as well as groundwater regulation within the office, or within the authority of the department, excuse me. And then you'll also have the enforcement side, which will be housed through the Office of Enforcement here. It's like the permitting functions within the agency, enforcement functions are spread around as well. So the idea behind the enforcement office is to centralize it all, streamline it, a one-stop shop for operators who are out of compliance, and it will provide risk-based prioritization of enforcement. It will help protect responsible operators and provide swift action on non-compliance, as well as a well-defined path forward. The Office of Energy exists within the department today. It'll be reconstituted in the reorganization. The strategic goals of the Office of Energy are going to remain mostly the same: advance the state's energy goals, pursue and administer grants on the federal level, and pursue grid resilience. So that office is going to work on strategic energy plans for the department and work with the Public Service Commission to implement that at the state level. Another aspect of this reorganization, which was relevant early on to CPRA and then evolved into the concept of, some of you may have heard, the Upland Resource Management Authority. That was a concept through last year to essentially create a counterpart to CPRA for the non-coastal areas of the state. That has been filed into a Senate Bill 97 by Senator Presley for this legislative session. Again, it's intended to create a counterpart to CPRA for the non-coastal areas of the state. And it is termed the Coordinated Use of Resources for Recreation, Economy, Navigation, and Transportation, or the current authority. So Senate Bill 97 is the official legislation for that concept. I encourage anyone interested to go and look at it. Another important part of this process is how to deal with regulatory liability for operators whenever something goes wrong. Traditionally, that might be handled through the legacy lawsuit process if there's a dispute. So the department has come up with the Saltwater and Oil Assessment Process, or SOAP, to create a forward-looking solution for regulatory liability for operators. It has been filed as Senate Bill 193 by Senator Henskins, which is the General Reorganization Bill. It has also been filed as House Bill 634 by Representative Jacob Landry. The concept is modeled on medical malpractice review panels, and it will essentially ensure expert insight to the regulatory liability side of the legacy lawsuit issue. It will not impact private claims in any way, shape, or form. And it will ensure predictable regulatory liability for the operators as the plan developed by the panel will be approved by all trustee agencies within the state. And at the end of this panel, it will provide an admissible report and record for any court proceedings. This concept is a part of the DRIVE initiative, but has not been incorporated into legislation so far for this session, at least to my knowledge. The Institute for Energy and Conservation would be a formal academic research institute supporting the department. The ultimate goal would be to create a national lab type of organization. It would pull in the Center for Energy Studies, Water Resources Research Institute, Louisiana Geological Survey, Institute for Energy Innovation, and the Center for River Studies into this national lab type organization. And like I said, that is not in the legislation for this session, but it is a concept that the department has published and is certainly interested in implementing potentially later on down the road. So timeline, we've gotten pretty far down the timeline at this point for the DRIVE initiative. We are into the legislative engagement phase. The department has filed its bills, which are Senate Bill 193 by Senator Henskins. That's going to be the department's generalized reorganization. Senate Bill 97 by Senator Presley, which is the current authority for the counterpart to CPRA. House Bill 605 by Representative Reiser will provide an opportunity for expedited processing through the Office of Permitting and Compliance. And House Bill 634 by Jacob Landry will be the saltwater oil assessment process. So assuming all those bills pass, July 1st, 2025 would be the generalized implementation date for the Department of Energy and Natural Resources, or the Department of Conservation and Energy, assuming that everything passes. So like I said, next steps, the legislature is going to work on these bills. The department's going to work with the legislature, and assuming that everything passes, it would all be implemented July 1st, 2025. The department is ready to engage with anyone that is interested in providing comments or feedback on the reorganization plan, and they've told me to provide the email that is on this slide. So I'll leave it up there for a minute if anyone wants to copy it down and discuss with the department. At this time, I'll take any questions.
Okay, Representative Drain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr.
Parker, congratulations on your job. I talked to the secretary and asked him when he was in the committee, and just want to confirm with you, because I know you've been involved in this for a while. On the DRIVE initiative and in the proposed legislation, I don't see it. I want to make sure that the intent of this effort is not to have CPRA within the authority of DENER, DCNER, whichever it comes at this point, within the legislation that's proposed or within the DRIVE initiative. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's not in any of the legislation.
Okay. Apart from the coordination, which makes sense, the flood protection with CPRA on the northern part, that's, as far as you know, the only inclusion.
Correct. The idea is coordinate where the two entities meet. Otherwise, there is no connection. They would be essentially co-equals.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other, yes, sir.
Thank you, Clay. You talked about permitting compliance and streamlining that process. Can you dive deeper into that, or what exactly, any changes that would be made, and what's that look like?
So any changes that would be made are not necessarily going to be made in the legislation. The legislation is going to be more to provide the organization structure, and then the department will work out any changes and updates through regulation. So I would say stay tuned once the legislation is passed for any changes, but I wouldn't anticipate anything groundbreaking, essentially making sure that the functions of the office are all streamlined into that one office, and that everything is as connected and as efficient as it can be.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Bourgeois.
Okay, so good presentation, Clay. One of the things that, I've talked about this was on the Natural Resource Commission. There's a spot for someone representing statewide flood interest. And it's probably a little disturbing to some people when the word current or the acronym current doesn't have a F for flood or a P for protection or an L for L levy or anything. But I wanted to assure people that when you do look into the legislation in Senate Bill 97, it's really centered on that as much as anything else. That said, and this is something I think that CPRA needs to pay attention to, there is no agency statewide flood that's involved in statewide flood protection other than sort of the Association of Levee Boards. And so where it said the member will come from either DOTD, which is where current is proposed to exist, which would be upstate levies, or CPRA, which are coastal levies, I would just make sure, and I think in another point we talked about was possibly that the Community Resiliency Officer could take that position. I would just say that it'd be very interesting for CPRA to take a position as that commission gets filled out, that there is someone who can truly represent both the northern parts of the state and the southern parts of the state from a flood protection point of view. And I don't know if that's just me talking or if you got any comments towards that.
We'll definitely be engaging with the department as they go forward, discussing it with them, I'm sure. But I don't have any insight as to who that individual would be.
Yeah, I just think it's important for us to make sure that that person, as CPRA, that person represents both the coastal zone flood protection levee districts and the northern flood protection. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bourgeois. Yes, Mr. Ron. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Parker, for this presentation, and just on behalf of the future Department of Energy Conservation, thanks for all the work you put in. It's been great to see this go from ambitious executive order from the governor and through a lot of internal meetings, a lot of stakeholder feedback, lots of troubleshooting and continuous innovation, particularly when you see like our acronyms evolve and improve as evidence. But it seems like it's very much matured, and for the senators and representatives for supporting this and see it through.
Yes, and also from the chair, Mr. Mark, it's a great move. I think it's trying to get efficiency and expedite coastal use permits and get them out to our stakeholders as quick as possible. And I think it's a great package y'all put together. And thank you for your hard work. Thank you. Okay, seeing no other questions, comments, we thank you very much, Mr. Parker, and welcome aboard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, now we're gonna move to board discussion, Glenn Day and Brian Levina on the 2026 annual plan, and then we'll have a board discussion and then a public comment.
Thank you, Chairman Dove. Excited to be here today to present the fiscal year 2026 CPRA annual plan. And so before I jump in, want to thank, obviously, our CPRA team that puts this together. Mr. Lazina is here to talk about the Atchafalaya program that's part of this. Mr. Weibel and Mr. Grandy are here that do a lot of work behind the scenes to make this happen, as well as our entire outreach and engagement team led by Ryan Shaw. So it's a big effort, and excited to be here to present this massive monumental plan for FY 2026. And so, as always, this process really starts in the fall of every year. As I talked about in January when we present the draft to you. We presented the draft this year on the 15th of January. That leads into public comment, which ended on March 22nd of this year, followed by the development of this final annual plan that is up for your approval today. Contingent upon that, if it gets approved, it moves into the Louisiana legislature, and we will work through that process with them on both the House and Senate side and Natural Resources and Transportation. So it's obviously a lengthy process that we go through every year, but we do that to showcase really all of the work that goes on in this program, as Mr. Bourgeois said, is really extensive. So excited to be here today on the 16th of April to present the draft final annual plan for 2026. As you've seen in the last several years, these plans are very large. They're funded by a number of funding sources. And so as we jump into that plan, I want to highlight those for you here on this slide. The biggest recurring revenue that we have that you see right there at the top that you know of is the Mesa. And so that's $293 million this year. But again, that's our largest source of recurring revenue. We've been fortunate in the last several years to cap out at Mesa and receive our maximum amount. And so we'll continue to advocate at the federal level to either raise or eliminate that cap. But that is our largest source of recurring revenue. So it's good to see that number be as large as it possibly can for both the state as well as parishes. As we move into the next three rows, we always talk about the Deepwater Horizon settlement dollars and the meaning to our program. You can see those are our largest buckets right now, as in NERDA, NIFWIP, and Restore on some of the large-scale restoration work that we do. But then as we move into other revenue sources, you've got our federal kind of largest running program is the QIPRA program. That's that 85-15 effort that we do. We update you every month on those ongoing projects. Got $125 million in that this year. We've got fortunate that we have a collection of surplus and capital outlay dollars from the Louisiana legislature that we often try to accumulate to go to these bid on these large complex projects. And then we've got state non-surplus, like our state mineral revenue, that provides our 15% match, as well as a number of operating expenditures and other sources of revenue like grants and OCD. So it takes all of those efforts to build this big program that this year is around $1.98 billion. So obviously our largest program to date annually. And again, most of that is being dedicated to projects in implementation. We've got 7% in engineering design, another 79% in construction. The construction efforts in this plan accumulate at $1.57 billion. And obviously, we're proud to say we keep our operating expenses low at 2%. And so we'll continue to do that and try to maximize the efficiency of this program to make sure that we're doing what we can to put as many projects every year on the ground for the citizens of Louisiana. And then with that, as we look forward, obviously we have a very healthy program in these next number of years, especially with the Deepwater Horizon dollars. You've got $1.75 billion next year, and then approximately 1.32 billion the following year, with that percentage being very large that's going into construction as well as engineering design to get those dollars on the ground. And so excited to see the health of the program as we look over the next 3 fiscal years. Just to remind the board, this is a detailed look at FY26, but we've got the projections for FY27 and 28 as well to look forward over the next 3 years. And then with that, as I mentioned when we jumped into this presentation, our public outreach is a big component of this. In the months of February and March of this year, we had 4 public meetings, 3 in person, 1 virtual, with over 200 attendees. So really good attendance there. We had our meeting in Lake Charles to kick it off in Southwest. We moved to South Central Louisiana and Houma. Chairman Dove addressed the crowd there on January 30th of this year. And then we moved to Southeast Louisiana and Jefferson Parish on February 11th, followed by a virtual meeting the next day. And we had obviously really good attendance as well as comments. We had over 239 comments received. So excited to see the participation by our partners, stakeholders, and citizens across the state. And so with that, every year we always like to highlight what our coastal industry means to the state. And so we had an opportunity with Chairman Alfred at the Governor's Advisory Commission to hear from Coast Builders and Geno Inc. Geno Inc. does an economics evaluation of our program every year for the annual plan and provides these numbers so that we can see what it really means. And so through that evaluation, you can see we've got over 13,154 direct jobs approximately that will come from this, with 773 million in labor income. When you think about the planning, engineering professional services, construction services, and all the variety of services on the environmental side that it takes to actually execute this program, not just at CPRA, our other state partners, as well as our other local partners in the levee districts and parishes. And so it's really massive to kind of see what that means to our community. But with this program, always want to highlight some of our key statistics. We've got 21 dredging projects in this plan that can build over 16,000 acres of marsh and wetlands, compared to approximately 11,000 to 12,000 acres last year. We've got 146 active projects throughout the fiscal year, with the peak always exceeding 100, as Mr. Bourgeois said earlier, at any one given time. And then, as we talked about earlier, you've got that 1.57 billion allocated for construction. And so just good to see all these statistics come together every year when we put this package together, and special thanks to Geno Inc. for doing that economics evaluation. And so with that, what we typically do is jump into projects and showcase a lot of the big projects across each region. I'll jump in here in Southwest. Want to notate that we obviously can't show every project in the plan with over 146 listed there throughout all of the pages, but we'll try to highlight several key projects, and then we've showcased several in our draft, so we'll try to mix it up and show some new ones in this presentation as well, just to showcase the breadth of work that's in this annual plan. And so the first is something that we've talked a lot about over the last 6 months, and that is our Southwest Coastal Federal Project. And this is that partnership with the Corps of Engineers that has both a non-structural component and an ecosystem restoration and shoreline protection component. And so the first piece of that is that non-structural risk reduction. You can see there, as we discussed in October, we had the big groundbreaking to kick off actually the first non-structural home elevation in the Corps program in Louisiana. So that was an exciting day. This is that home that's been lifted. It's substantially complete now. And so excited to see that start the process. And just to remind the board, this is the pilot program where we're trying to elevate 18 homes across the Southwest coastal area in Vermilion, Calcasieu, and Cameron Parish. And so excited to see that first home substantially complete. You've got some additional work that needs to happen there to get it to 100% completion. And then the Corps of Engineers is moving on to the next set to complete the pilot program. From there, that you'll see in the annual plan, that will inform the decisions to construct the first big segment, which is 800 to 1,000 homes in those 3 parishes to elevate and flood-proof those areas. So excited to see that start because that will inform the process for a number of other federal projects such as South Central and St. Tammany. And so with that, we have the other component of Southwest Coastal, which is that massive ecosystem restoration component there. And so that is some of the work that we just highlighted in the implementation phase. We've got actually kind of the federal component that we're doing in Rockefeller, as I mentioned, on what we call MB41, where we're doing the design as work-in-kind credit for the Corps, and then they will help to construct that under this federal authorization. And so that's exciting to see. In addition to that, we're pairing state dollars with local dollars to build segmented breakwaters right here that you see similar to the areas across Cameron Parish. So a number of efforts that are ongoing there to provide shoreline protection along the Gulf of Cameron. And then we've got, the future, and when we look forward in FY27, 8 and beyond, the ecosystem restoration as part of that federal program that will eventually be funded as a partnership with the Corps. And so that's a massive multi-billion-dollar program that we're excited to see kick off first construction efforts on that NER piece. And then with that, this is something that we highlighted at the last annual plan presentation. This is the Calcasieu-Sabine large-scale marsh and hydrologic restoration project. This is one of the biggest restore funded programs in the state. It's $261 million approximately from Restore to restore the Cameron Creole watershed. That's a massive watershed, over 65,000 acres that will be restored through this. And there's several components to it. We're actually going to move to construction this summer with the first component, which is the hydrologic restoration, the backflow prevention structures along the Lake Calcasieu rim. And so that's really an exciting thing. We've got these backflow prevention structures similar to what we've seen in other parts of the state that will provide that hydrologic restoration here. And that'll be the first component. We've got some large-scale marsh creation with conveyance improvements that'll take place in that area. And then we also have a big beneficial use program that we're trying to kick off with the Corps as part of this. They have to dredge Calcasieu Ship Channel, as you know, periodically. And so we'll be able to use that material to rebuild marsh in this region. And so exciting to see that first component move to construction this fiscal year. And then in addition to that, Leanne Sharp with our office there in Lafayette presented the other side of the Calcasieu Ship Channel, the west side. And so the needs there are similar here. And so we'll be kickstarting that feasibility process to look at those projects to get us to the point there where we can move to construction. So a lot of great things happening in that region. And then finally, we've talked a little bit about White Lake, heard from Wildlife and Fisheries at the Governor's Advisory Commission. We have the kickoff of that program and the first construction component of that project, which is trying to restore and protect those critical areas of the GIWW. Then we've got the start of a much larger program there. You can see we had an opportunity to go out with our team, as well as Wildlife and Fisheries and Secretary Bosworth this spring to look at those critical areas. We're sitting there right there on White Lake shoreline, looking at the damage that's been done. You can see the whitecaps in the lake on a windy day there. So we're really fortunate to have a nice day and be provided the opportunity to look at all the critical needs there in White Lake. But we'll be kicking off that program's construction in this fiscal year. So we've got, obviously a lot of projects in Southwest. We've got a number of projects in South Central as we move further east. You can see there, we can't showcase all of them, but we've got projects like West Fourchon Marsh Creation, part of Quipper, hoping to move to construction there. You've got obviously the St. Mary back lakeside flood protection work that we highlighted to the board a few months ago. We kicked off construction there with Mr. Hidalgo in St. Mary Levee District. We've got a number of other activities that we'll highlight, but just a lot of activity across the South Central region. And I want to showcase a few of those featured projects. We got to present to the board last month on the continued work at the Houma Navigation Canal Lock Complex, our biggest cornerstone project of the Mark Anniston Gulf system. Over $330 million funded by Restore that provides a whole host of benefits, flood protection, drainage, ecosystem restoration, etc. And so we'll keep updating the board over the next several years as we move through that project, but just exciting to see the work that's going on there. In addition to that, we did highlight to the board last month on the work that's being done at Reach A, both on the federal and state side in Terrebonne Levee District. But we've got a number of levee improvements that are taking place across Markansas to the Gulf, both with TLCD and North Lafourche. And so this is some of the work that was just completed at Reach I. As we kind of talked to the board, we're trying to get the interim system to a full protection elevation of approximately 15 feet to provide that critical protection to Houma so that we don't have scares like we did in Hurricane Francine. So that work is going on. We'll continue with Reach H2 and H3 that we touched on earlier, but a lot of exciting activity, and thankful to the partnership there with those levee districts. And then in addition to that, another exciting system that we're kicking off in this fiscal plan is the Iberia St. Mary Upland Levee System and Hurricane Protection System. That's that large-scale hurricane protection system in south central Louisiana in Iberia St. Mary Parish. We've got the design kicking off on a couple of critical features across areas like Commercial Canal and Delcambre Avery Canal. We've got some water control structures, part of this program, that are actually moving to construction or in construction now. And then what's not shown here, we also have kind of the feasibility level design that's going to kickstart on the Abbeville and vicinity program. That's really all of this south central Louisiana hurricane protection and flood risk reduction systems that are all part of the master plan. So that's all kicking off in this FY 2026 annual plan. And so we'll keep updating you, particularly on these water control structures that are already in construction and the design as that kicks off. And then the last featured project in South Central is another partnership with Wildlife and Fisheries. It's that Marsh Island restoration. This is that large-scale restoration program across Marsh Island in Iberia Parish. That's part of the master plan. And so whether it's terraces that you can see there, or large-scale marsh creation, or the shoreline protection components and improvements to water control structures within the island, this is a critical program that we're actually able to kick off the detailed engineering design that we initially started in last FY 2025 plan. So wanted to highlight that to the board on that ongoing activity. And then moving on to the last region in Southeast, obviously a huge region there. We've got a number of projects across all of these parishes. You can see we've got hydrologic restoration like the Mississippi River reintroduction into Bayou Lafourche, or the Mr. Go Central Wetlands efforts that will kickstart an engineering design year that are exciting. We've got a number of pump station improvements in St. Charles Parish that are part of that Upper Barataria Basin program. All of those efforts are moving forward. You see the host of projects that are in construction. We talked about NOV in Plaquemines Parish. You've got West Shore that we mentioned. We've got the Lake Bowen Marsh creation that's funded for construction that will continue and hopefully be completed this fiscal year. So really a host of projects. You can see there are 84 active projects across the Southeast region. But with that, just want to highlight again one of the key projects that we've got here that's starting construction in this annual plan, and that is the Chandelier Islands restoration. And again, this is the largest barrier island restoration in the state's history. Really massive, over 13 miles on Chandelier, as well as New Harbor Island. And so that CMAR just kick-started, as you saw, and then moving to construction this fiscal year. And then, as we mentioned in the implementation, with those updates to those communities in St. Charles and St. John, we've got the continuation of that West Shore Lake Pontchartrain project. That's that 18.5-mile levee system, hurricane protection system in St. Charles, St. John, as well as in St. James Parish. And so you can see all the work that you see there in Interstate 10 as you drive between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. You've got, of course, the levee systems that are already underway. The Corps is actually going to be advertising and bidding the 2 large-scale pump stations that later this year in the next several weeks. And so that will be kind of some of the biggest components of this program. CPRE is building 2 of these reaches, as well as the river reintroduction into Morpont Swamp, and doing all of this in coordination with the 3 parishes in Pontchartrain Levee District. And then, as I mentioned, St. James has some of the components in this that are just kickstarting they're starting some of that work early as working kind credit, and that'll be followed by the federal work with the Army Corps. So really a massive system. Excited to see that moving forward, and you've got, I'd say, a majority of those components already in construction or moving to construction. The next river reintroduction into Maurepas Swamp piece that'll go to construction is Reach 3. That'll be advertised in the coming months. And then with that, we have the implementation of the upper barrier risk reduction system. And so I know I mentioned this to the board in the draft presentation, but this is that 30-plus mile levee system, hurricane protection system that goes from St. Charles across Bayou des Allemands into Lafourche Parish. It protects up 5 parishes, 2 levee districts, as well as all of those communities there north of Bayou des Allemands. It's one of the biggest features that's in this annual plan is to try to kickstart the construction of the Bayou des Allemands floodgate complex. It's that floodgate flood wall pump station complex that you can see that rendering there as this system crosses Bayou des Allemands. It will tie into a levee system that is in Lafourche Parish. We're partnering with Mr. Bourgeois and the North Lafourche Levee District to kickstart that in this annual plan. The Corps is already constructing a piece of that with funds that, I should say, engineering a piece of that with funds that they received from Congress. And then we're continuing to work with Mr. McMillan to advocate to get New Start construction dollars here. And then again, on the St. Charles side, we've got a system, an interim system that's built. And so we're working with St. Charles Parish to improve those pump stations in those levee reaches like Sunset to try to bring that up to as close as we can to the actual design elevation. So a ton of activity across this system. That's all part of this annual plan. And then moving on to some of our other restoration efforts and resiliency efforts, we've got the Grand Isle Restoration and Resiliency. That's part of this annual plan as well. This is actually 3 components. You've got the completion of that beach and dune system that the Corps is constructing. That's substantially complete and should get to final completion just at the beginning of this fiscal year, followed by inspection and turnover. You've got the work that the state is doing with the Corps on a project information report to add shoreline protection components with this program. That would be the segmented breakwaters to complete that system on the Gulf side. And so the Corps is working that to get that funding through FCAC and E, and the state is providing the support on the engineering, design, and modeling side. And so that's ongoing, and hope to get to construction on that in this fiscal year. And then that's in addition to the initiation of the back island levee improvements to provide flood risk reduction and resiliency on the back side, on the Caminada side of the Grand Isle levee. And so all 3 of those pieces are part of this annual plan, and we'll be moving in this next fiscal year. And then with that, we've got some final coastal initiatives that we always include as part of this presentation. And so the first of those, these are sort of programmatic activities. The first of those is our matching program. And so this started under Restore as a Restore Parish matching program. And we've got, some of those successful projects like Lake Leary and Rockefeller. But we had our new award that we announced just last month. That was $6 million awarded across 5 parishes. You can see those awards there. You've got Terrebonne, Rockasee Bay Terraces, the Highway 1 Terraces in Lafourche. You've got 2 projects in St. Tammany, at the one at the Chafuncta mouth for the habitat restoration. The other is the Mandeville Lakefront Wetlands Project. You've got the Lee's Landing hydrologic restoration in Tangipahoa, and then the extension of that North Vermilion Bay Shoreline Protection Project that's under construction now. That's phase 2 of this program to provide that protection along the north piece of Vermilion Bay. So excited to see these parishes participate, and we're obviously still moving forward on the efforts that we started under FY25. So just a ton of activity across that parish matching program, and we'll have the funding that you see in this annual plan for future years to come. And then with that, we've got kind of the ongoing activities on the barrier islands, as well as some key efforts in the basins. And so the first of this is the Terrebonne Basin Barrier Island efforts. And so we've got a ton of activity across this, as you can see. We are trying to get to construction on the West Bell Headland restoration, an ongoing effort there with FEMA. We are very close to finishing the environmental work and getting to construction this fiscal year, so that will be an exciting day. We've got the initiation of the restoration of the East Timberlier, Cassatet, Calumet Islands, finishing up the data collection efforts there, and then eager to jump into the design. We've got the restoration of Raccoon. We actually were able to update the board last month with the work that NOAA's doing through the Louisiana TIG. And so that Raccoon Island restoration is in the engineering and design phase. And then we've got ongoing construction at Terrebonne, Hope, and Navigation Canal Island that will be completed this fiscal year. And then the start of the Wine Islands restoration through the Terrebonne Levee District and probably a number of other activities that we'll continue to announce throughout the Terrebonne Basin. So a lot of activity there that's exciting. We've got ongoing work in Barataria Basin as well. I mentioned everything going on in Brandau, but we also have those efforts at the Caminada Headland in Port Fourchon. We, like I said, just moved to construction on the first phase of that with the restoration of some of those efforts around Port Fourchon for the Caminada Headland, as well as the expansion and improvements of those breakwater systems there to provide protection for the port and the headland. And so all of that will be part of this fiscal year plan that we started in the last plan for engineering and design. But we've also got some big key components and programs that are moving forward in both the Breton Sound Basin as well as the Barataria Basin. And so the first of those that you see in the annual plan is that Mid-Breton Land Bridge and the large-scale marsh creation and terracing work. As I mentioned, that first component of it is moving to construction and is being advertised and bid right now with the NIFWIF grant. And then you've got that other piece that's under construction now. You can see all of those components that it will take to complete that system. And we've got a number of those that are funded with that partnership with St. Bernard Parish in this annual plan. And so trying to get those engineering and design started on all of these components so we can get permitting completed and then pursue construction funding in the next several years. And then finally, before I turn it over to Mr. Lozina and Atchafalaya, we have a huge program started in the Barataria Basin as well, and that is the land bridge and large-scale marsh creation efforts. And so similar to what you saw in the Breton Sound area, we've got kind of the kickoff of the lower Barataria land bridge showcased in the master plan there. You've got the large-scale marsh creation in the Murder Grove area. You've got obviously large-scale marsh creations throughout the basin. We've got efforts like Spanish Pass Increment 2 that are part of this annual plan as well. You can see the success there for Spanish Pass Increment 1. So excited to kick off the program here and the engineering design that will take place to get those projects similar to Mid-Breton to engineer, design, and permit those projects. And so you'll see that as all as part of the annual plan in FY26. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lozina to talk about the program he is managing in the Atchafalaya Basin.
Thank you, Director Ledet and Chairman members. Good to see everybody. A little bit different on how we present the Atchafalaya annual plan. I know the CPRA has a lot of projects and programs, and the reason we called this out is this is in statute as having its own particular process. So when we assumed the Atchafalaya program in 2018, we were able to revise that to include the Atchafalaya annual plan as an appendix within the coastal annual plan, our guidance document. But at the same time, it still has a separate outreach program. It still has a separate sort of public solicitation to really keep it focused on exactly where it was supposed to be in the Atchafalaya basin system, part of that. Excellent. Thanks. So with that, you'll see it called out here as an appendix D in your plan in front of you, and a list of those fiscal year 26 projects. Generally, those projects are water quality, water management projects to try and restore some of those things in the basin, as well as recreational access and some other projects. So we feel it's important not only in this area to restore those habitats, but also the cultural heritage that the commercial activities, the recreational activities, sort of what we consider South Louisiana here in this particular part of the world, the basin. Call out a few of them. So you see up at the top, dredging, Big Pine Pigeon, Grimet Canal, Murphy Lake, and some of those other projects. These are exactly what you want to see in integrated restoration, protection, habitat projects. So we've done some work in the basin. We restore flows. We can improve those water quality habitats. But at the same time, some of these projects, we're removing sediment. We are making deep water habitats for fisheries that is important, especially during low river times. We're helping this system pass those floodwaters for the residents. So it's about as big of a 4 times win that you can get with these projects, and we're excited to be moving some of these forward. We're in preliminary stages on some, design on others, and look forward to presenting that to the board as we go. But also, as I mentioned, some of the recreational commercial access projects, which I'll touch on one, and then the basin plan. So, incredibly important area for the commercial and recreational activities in South Louisiana. Obviously, it's crawfish season. It's Easter. We're all going to get that this weekend. I know I personally will do my part for the commercial activities there. But we were fortunate enough, in partnership with Iberville Parish, to have the groundbreaking of basically an overhaul and expansion of the Bayou Pigeon boat launch. If you're not familiar with it in Iberville, this is pretty much the eastern gateway to the Atchafalaya Basin. If you haven't seen this during busy times like it is right now, go. You'll be impressed with where people can put boats, trailers, and trucks, and we're aiming to help that here. So the groundbreaking was in January. I'm proud to say we are going to dramatically expand the capabilities of the boat launch there, both in terms of the actual launches and size of launches and depth of launches, but also the parking, safety, and other things that are important here on that side of the levee. January was the groundbreaking. Happy to say, and I'm going to knock on wood and hope for the best. We're well on schedule for a before hopefully September completion, so we're not impacting the fishermen more than we absolutely have to. So then I touched on, but one of the things we really promised as an agency when we took the Atchafalaya Basin program over was to give this the same look, put it in the same category that we did for the entire rest of coastal Louisiana. I can say, through a whole bunch of reasons, funding and others, certainly this area hasn't gotten that same robust planning level input that we have gotten for the rest of the coastal Louisiana, and we finally have the opportunity to remedy that. So right now we are engaged in a revision of what is a state plan, but really an expansion of the Atchafalaya Master Plan. We are going to take a science, engineering-based, same thing we do with the state's coastal plan, and really focus in on Atchafalaya-related issues. And you can see right there some of the tenets, really how to move sediment, how to move water, how to recreate some of these habitats, how to protect others, how we get people involved in that, and basically how we take the story of this basin also to a bigger federal audience as well. You've heard me say plenty of times, everybody knows about Chesapeake Bay, everybody knows about the Everglades. I dare say you wouldn't hear much about Atchafalaya Basin if you went to other parts of the country. And that's something we're looking to fix on this particular thing here. So obviously, this is important to get kicked off. Thank you to a lot of the folks sitting here. Either you or your staff have been a huge part of this planning process. We're trying to get everybody involved as we can, but really also focus on what we do best here is public outreach and getting that voice from the public. So we have had some preliminary already meetings about the plan. You can see those listed, over 100 total attendees, and went out with our first project solicitation. So we're asking the public, you are out there all the time. You have those ideas, same thing we do. Bring them back to us. We don't want to show up and tell you, here's what we think is good for the basin. We want to hear your ideas. You can see up there we've had 23 projects submitted. I will say there are also packages of projects, so this may not be the full complement, and you can see the categories there. But what we're also doing is looking back in the past and saying, what other projects have been submitted? What do we see from the coastal plan? What other things have we heard from the extensive outreach that we've done, extensive comments we received? Let's put all that into plan. Same thing we do from a larger planning effort with the state's coastal master plan. And we'll start to move those forward in evaluation. And of course, we'll be in front of the board as we do that. But incredibly excited for this. I think it gives us not only the opportunity to pull on the same rope in the same direction, but again, to expand sort of the reach of this particular area where it hasn't been federally on there. And I just want to say also thank you to Team Coastal and all the folks working on this. I think Director Leday would agree that there's no one person working on one project. Everybody's involved in everything you see here, and so I want to say thank you to the team.
Yeah, thank you, Brian, and just echo that as we kind of finish up the last slide here. We've got this plan. Obviously, we have printouts of it, and then we also have that interactive map at our site that showcases all of these projects. It takes a full team at CPRA, as well as all of our partners across the state, to put on something like this big annual plan every single year. So, thanks to all the work that you do at the board, as well as all of our partners. But excited to present this to the board, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Leday and Brian. Glenn, what a great, aggressive annual plan. I know everyone at CPRA worked hard on it, all the members of this board and stakeholders throughout Louisiana. And, besides islands and segmented breakwater rocks, we're working with parishes on pumping stations on it. Their parish levies and marsh creation and real aggressive, in Lake Bourne area and all. So, it's a great plan. I think, we really covered all the coastal zone parishes, and I want to tell you, I know y'all worked hard, and I thank you. And with that, are there any comments from the board? Yes, Mr. Kyle.
A couple of questions concerning the Southwest Coastal Non-Structural Risk Reduction.
Yes, sir.
Is that program, independent of the severe repetitive loss program under FEMA, or is that part?
Yes, sir. It is. It's an independent program, so that is generally fairly new. It's as part of the evaluation of flood risk feasibility studies that the Corps did with CPRA and the locals. Some of the recommendations are not only structural protection, but non-structural, so home elevations and floodproofing. And so in addition to that FEMA program you mentioned, this is another federal program with the state. It's cost shared, 65% federal, 35% state. And then the homes are elevated and commercial buildings are floodproof. And so it's a separate program from severe repetitive loss.
So the requirements to be qualified under this program would be different from severe?
Yes, actually, Mr. Lazina can touch on that.
Yes, sir. So this was through the Corps' sort of nationwide program. What we look at is who is currently maybe in a floodplain or some below base flood elevation or floodplain issues, but we forecast then into the future and also include those homes. So this was done in 2016 was the actual report to Congress on this. The project was authorized. We were fortunate enough to get funding a couple of years ago. So that's basically what the eligibility is. Not a severe repetitive loss. You didn't even have to sustain a loss. It was the forecast that you may sustain that loss in the future. So we're buying down risk today and buying down risk 50 years into the future as well for that.
And is this program limited to Southwest Louisiana, or any homeowner in a flood zone would be able to qualify for this program?
So it is limited to the areas that had a federal feasibility study authorized in Congress through a word bill. So the ones that are currently authorized is Southwest Coastal, which is Cameron, Vermilion, and Cowichan Parish, as well as South Central in Iberia and St. Mary. You do have the new authorization in St. Tammany, and then we're currently doing additional studies in Tangipahoa and Lafitte. And so if all of those are authorized, all of those parishes will be eligible, in addition to the work that DOTD is doing in the AD.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members? Representative Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of the announcement last week and our discussion, Mr. Leday, what is the path forward now that Mid-Barren Terry is suspended?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Duran. Yeah, I mean, right now we're working with the TIG on next steps and potential solutions, as well as the administration in GOCA. And so trying to look at all options there with the stop work and the temporary suspension in place.
And I fully get it, and believe me, I appreciate the work that goes into the annual plan, and I know what's involved in doing that. But the concern I have, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Day, is the fact that last week we had the announcement, and the expectation now is for the board to vote on a plan where the largest single project within the plan, both in size and dollar amount, is essentially working to be canceled. Now, I mean, it's no secret, I mean, that's the intent, to work to cancel it, but we don't have a path forward or a plan that what we could engage in or supplant that to affect the basin. So it has a significant impact on the basin. It's not on the project. This path forward is not to be part of the master plan. So it seems somewhat disingenuous to vote on a plan when we know that this one project is no longer included without at least a path forward and indication of what we intend to do now that that plan or that project will be canceled.
Mr. Doreen, I can answer that. You know, nothing's been done officially with it, so it has to stay on the plan. We had discussed that. And, you know, Governor Jeff Landry and administration, we were tasked with finding the facts, figures, and backup on everything that happened from day one with this back area diversion, which is in the cost overrun is already over the amount of money that the NIFWIF and NERDA has dedicated to it, as you well know. And so the rest of the money has to come out of the state somewhere, whether it's to obligate GOMESA for decades, or it's to go to capital outlay, or it's to go to surplus, but the legislature would have to start funding. So we were tasked for facts, figures, and backups, and we have aggressively, they've got teams of lawyers on, and CPRA got with information, and we're putting all this together to present to administration and also to ourselves, and we are aggressively working on exactly where we at, and we do have some other alternatives that we're looking at, and we'll present them to the public once we finish this aggressive compilation of everything. And as you can see, we're not just sitting back, we're moving forward with a land bridge that, in my opinion, should have been built a decade ago. That was in a master plan when I was on this board. And so we're moving forward with that. President Hinckley is moving forward with the engineering on the Spanish Pass project, which has been very successful. I think they created 1,000 acres. And so we're working on that, and we're putting it all together to be presented. So we felt that you can't just take something off until there's something officially done. And so that's the position we're taking, and I know it's the correct position. I can't remove something that the final decision hasn't been made. It was suspended for 90 days because the cost is just atrocious on it to sit there while we're trying to do all this. And so that's why the AWA, the contractor, is working with us, and we're getting equipment out of there that we're paying every day on that job site.
I understand that, I fully appreciate that, but the fact of the matter is this is the plan that's being voted on today. Again, as a legislator, I don't vote on CPRI. I do vote in the Pony building on the plan, but I don't vote today, but I'm just concerned because of the fact that it's still there, and at least we don't have an alternative or proposal that is being considered. And I fully appreciate the fact of the funding, but I mean, we've had many projects, West Shore, there's cost overruns. HNC Lock has been over, and there's been many cost overruns on a lot of the projects, and those issues haven't really stopped those projects. So I'm just concerned that two things, that this is not included or won't be included in the future plans, and we're voting on it. And the fact of the matter is we don't have an alternative. And I don't want you to think I'm dumping on it, because we had this conversation. I appreciate your call on Thursday or Friday, and I raised those issues, and I'll continue to raise the issues because, you know, this is the plan that the expectation is to be voted on, and it's no longer, will not be a part of the plan.
In this is terrain, as you well know, there's 140 other projects.
Right. Oh, I'm not.
Direct carriage diversion is, you know, while we were getting all this information together, which I want to thank CPRA, they really worked diligently. We put, the CPRA and others have put together a annual plan, which actually we found more money, so we were able to give more projects. And so, that is one plan. And as far as cost overruns, the magnitude of the O and M on this, when we get finished putting our figures together, is nothing like the HNC. I mean, this is really some high dollars of overruns on this. This isn't just $50 million or something. I mean, I know a lot of it, but until we release it, but it is a real high, the amount of money that's gonna have to be spent on this. And look, and you and I had this discussion. You're gonna have to dedicate Go Mesa for decades to come if you build this project. Now, everyone up here and everyone in the audience gets Go Mesa money. I call it the Holy Grail. We can do whatever we want with it as long as it's coastal. And then you have the royalty funds that's at stake here. You start dedicating them to one project, is it fair to the other 20 parishes or the other 19 parishes? And that's what we're taking into consideration with all of this. And we do have a path forward, at least I do, this would be my recommendation when we finish all this. And look, they've got like 4 legal teams. We've hired a lawyer that is that's his specialty is Seymour contracts, to make sure we're not violating Seymour. The governor was very explicit, and also administration, that we got our facts, figures, but backups. He wants every backup that we're gonna give him on this when we're ready to move in a decision, and we're gonna definitely, let the board know and then the public know.
And I fully appreciate that. And I think that speaks to the problem, is the fact that there is a lot of discussions and things going on of which the board is not privy to, but ultimately factor in the decision in terms of how we vote, how the board should vote. And we haven't seen that. That's the point I'm raising, is the fact that there are alternatives or other things that are being considered, but the expectation is to vote on things that we don't or haven't been privy to in terms of those discussions.
But you are privy with the land bridge, the 23.5-mile land bridge, as you well know, you've been here as long as I have. That should have been built a long time ago to stop the north, the high salinity waters, to slow the aggression of the high salinity waters going into the north in the Barataria. That has to be built. There's no doubt about it. And the long distance pipeline settlement, as you know, in the 2007 Word bill, that part of what the Corps recommended, besides the 2,500 to 15,000 CFS, it was put on the chief's report, authorized by Congress for the construction and engineering of a 15,000 CFS, not 75,000 CFS. The Corps studied every one of these CFSs from, I think, 250,000 to 150,000 to 100,000, all the way down to 15. They chose back then, and I know you well, you were an executive director. I got on this board in 08. And that was authorized, but what was authorized along with that is long distance pipeline settlement, as you well know. And of course, Myrtle Grove was done during that period of time, very successful, I think 1,500 acres of pumping sediment off the rivers. So we're not just, we're doing 149 other projects, and we are diligently working to get the information together, and we will release it as quick as administration has a chance to review it, and of course this board will get all the information that we have.
I get it, and not to belabor the point again, and I have no problem with those projects. The projects you mentioned are fully supported. I think they're good projects. Again, the concern is the expectation and the vote on a plan in which a significant component of that plan won't be there in the future, and its impacts to the basin in which that's included. And that's my major concern. But
well, and I mean, go ahead and and I mean, as you well know, that money doesn't just go away. It will be put up for compliance and for qualifying other projects to the tune of about $2.2 billion.
I agree.
Well, no, the money just doesn't go away. So whatever the final decision is made, it's still money sitting out there. And my job, and I think our job in CPRA and this board, is to make sure we're not putting good money to a project that may be modified, may be changed.
And I fully support that. The challenge or the problem is that money, there's no guarantee that it's going to go. It goes back in the pool. It's not necessarily Louisiana money per se. I mean, it's going to be competed on with other projects within the process. Louisiana still has a good shot at getting it, but it's gonna have, not to mention that if you delay this one, implementing either other diversions, there've been discussion of maybe other diversions, Mid Breton or some of the others that could possibly be used. But those will take 5+ years to get those implemented as well. So again, I don't disagree that there's planning in place, but just, again, my concern and the issue is voting on a plan of which a huge component is not
Well,
included.
and I want to comment on what you just said about it goes to other states. I was
No,
on.
it could, I didn't say it
I was
automatically
on a
does.
board, that is the state of Louisiana's money, and it will stay in the state of Louisiana.
I hope so.
No, there's no hope, it will stay in Louisiana. We were awarded so much money in 3 parts, as you well know, the Restore Count Act, and the Restore, the NIFWIF, and the NERDA. Now, this project is taking all the construction money out of NERDA and NIFWIF, you agree with that?
Yeah, but the NIFWIF
Out of that money.
the NIFWIF dollars are specific to certain types of projects. There's no guarantee that that's automatic, the NIFWIF dollars applied to this project are automatically gonna go to another project within the master plan because it's specific into how it can be used. So to say that this money is definitely gonna go to Louisiana, I question that. There's no guarantee. I hope it does, but it's gonna have to go through a process. The whole settlement process has specific conditions that you have to meet to engage in projects, to implement projects, and that's gonna be the challenge. Whether or not we can utilize that money, I hope you're right, but there's no guarantee.
You were there as well as I was there when we did this. And that money will come to Louisiana. That money was dedicated to Louisiana. There is some funds that the other 4 states that can fight for. But those monies come to Louisiana. And I don't see any problem in us getting it. And NIFWIF, as you know, is for diversions in Barry Islands. Did you see the program of Barry Islands we have up here? We've got a lot of programs of Barry Islands that was in the oil spill area. That, we're not gonna run out of Barry Island work. I can assure you that.
But again, as you know, it has to go through that process and whether or not we get it. I hope you're right, believe me. I want all the money. We got screwed, quite frankly, in what we got. We should have got a hell of a lot more, but be that as it may, I hope it does stay here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Zoran. Representative Zoran. Yes, sir, Mr. Kyle.
Yeah, I guess just to address the issue that is being discussed, should we make a clarification that we are simply voting on an annual plan that we have budgeted for rather than including the project that he addressed, that right at this moment is being, we don't have money for.
Well, you do have the money for that. That's in the annual plan. Glenn, you want to answer that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mr. Kyle. The annual plan is always the spending plan, and then each of these revenue items has expenditures in there. If there's an issue, as Mr. Zerang mentioned, on any project that gets held up, we would come back for the board for future action, typically through the next annual plan. You've got processes in place for each of these funding sources to reallocate those dollars to future projects or modify these projects. So that would all be done with board action, particularly through the next annual plan, if there is a delay or a suspension on a project like Mid-Barataria. So yeah, so it's a spending authority, and then if there are challenges, those projects would get paused and then would be reallocated in future annual plans.
And let me add this. This is the first time that a project's been held up. East Timberlake Island had the final draft in 2017 with $168 million to rebuild East Timberlake Island, and it was shelved. The Chaffalaya to Terrebonne, they spent quite a bit of money on trying to engineer to get the water to the Homer Navigation Canal to get it to the east side of Terrebonne, the west side of Lafourche Parish. That project has been shelved, or it's in the process of being shelved because the engineering didn't work. You only got 100 CFS to the Homer Nav, which does us no good on the east side, of Terrebonne Parish. You've had projects that have been suspended before. The 2007 water bill was suspended. And that was a core funded project, 6535, That was suspended in 2013 when this BP money came along, and that's how they went into this 75,000 CFS diversion.
And I'll just add, we have projects that have permitting or land rights challenges, and so those projects will get extended. And so those funds just roll over to the next annual plan. We've got a couple of those. We've been working on West Bell. We thought we'd be able to get to construction last fiscal year, so we had the construction dollars in there. We had permitting challenges that we're close to resolving, and so that gets carried forward. So as Chairman Dove said, we see that happen quite often. And so those dollars still are part of the spending plan, the annual plan. And then if we need to make modifications, we would do that through the next annual plan.
Yes, sir, Mr. Dow.
I think a case in point is that the Bayou Chain project was removed from the list on the master plan at one time, okay? But yet today, it is a project and done and complete. So it was removed at one time, but we worked on it and made it happen, okay? So I think that's what has to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dow. Mr. Bourgeois, I'm sorry, I thought you were looking at something.
No, just trying to get your attention. I appreciate, what Representative Zarang Z, it's hard to call you Representative Zarang Z, is saying, because it puts us in an awkward position approving a plan that was based on a master plan that included such a big anchor project. I think it has, I guess what I want to say is, but here we sit today, right? This is obviously going to have a big implication on the master plan because everything is interconnected. And, maybe before the next annual plan, we need to have some rethinking about how that had an impact on the master plan and maybe reevaluate things. But, and to say it's unfortunate is an understatement of all the things that happened with regards to Mid-Barataria. But as has been pointed out, we've got a pipeline running right now of all of these projects. And I'm not clear on what not approving the annual plan today would get us, right? Other than a big stop. I don't know how we could force everything to the table. And so, I have my thoughts on Mid-Barataria just like everybody else, but everything else that's in this plan, that's in the pipeline, it's running. So this isn't just what we're spending today. It's a continuation of what we've been going. It's a look into the future and everything else. And as I said, as unfortunate as it is, I think it has a big component in the master plan's change. And I think that we probably ought to readjust next year's annual plan based off of it being in there or not being there, depending on where things go from lawsuits and every other component that's being considered. But I think it's just challenging. It is challenging, I do recognize, to say that we're voting on something that has a big gap in it that's undetermined, but I also think at this point, it's unavoidable. We need to pass this plan, in my mind, to be able to get it on to legislators so we can keep that momentum that we have on the 106 some odd projects we have rolling right now. And it is a good opportunity to talk about it because it is a problem. It is something that's in the room. But when it comes to the voting on it, I just I don't see that I have an option. I feel like I've got a gun to my head as well on that side of it. And I just want to make that statement.
Thank you, Mr. Bourgeois. Any other? Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Barbara.
Glenn, to that end, I just want to thank you and your team again for your continued efforts at White Lake and Marsh Island. When you look at this plan, you look from Rockefeller all the way to the Atchafalaya. There's a lot of partnership and projects between Wildlife and Fisheries and CPRA. That's always a good thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bosworth.
Any other members? Okay, seeing none. Thank you all for the healthy discussion.
Thank you.
And thank you, Glenn and Brian. Great job on the annual plan. And so we will go ahead and start with the public. And let me see. Now, we've got quite a few people speaking, so we will have to enforce, and I'm sorry about it, the 3-minute rule, because if not, we'll be here quite a while. So, you're going to have 3 minutes, and please come up in the order that I think they will give it to me. And Lauren Bird, of the Audubon, I guess that's the Audubon Society. Thank you.
Hello, Chairman and Board. My name is Lauren Berg, and I am with the National Audubon Society. In his kickoff comments for Louisiana's legislative session, Governor Jeff Landry highlighted several new economic projects designed to boost the state's economy and create jobs. Notably absent from his speech was the administration's cancellation of a $3 billion infrastructure project, the largest in Louisiana's coastal master plan, the Mid-Barataria Sediment Diversion. When this administration took office, the Lynchpin Coastal Project had already completed years of environmental review and permitting, was fully funded by oil spill fines, and under construction. But now, after over a year of self-imposed delays, the state has begun to demobilize this project and calling the maneuver a 90-day pause. This administration has tried to frame its opposition to the sediment diversion as a financial issue. When that doesn't stick, they reach for cherry-picked technical details to cast out. And when that fails, they fall back on vague appeals to culture. But let's be honest, the real issue here isn't money, science, or community, it's politics. For 2 decades, Louisiana's coastal program has maintained that the only fair way to make a project decision is to maximize the role of science because the needs are too great and the resources are too limited to do anything else. This approach has been critical to the program's ability to secure $21.6 billion in primarily outside funding. So when this administration decides to let politics rule the day, they are not just killing this project, they are risking the credibility and the function of the entire coastal program. When politics comes first, decision-making turns into deal-making. It invites people to withhold support until they get something extra. That is the lesson that a small but vocal minority in Plaquemines Parish has taught us all, but that is not how you restore or protect our coast. When politics comes first, small projects become more useful than larger, more impactful ones because there are more of them to hand out as favors or withdraw as punishment. But again, that's not how you restore or protect our coast. When politics comes first, any parish or stakeholder can grind a major project to a halt, no matter how much planning, science, permitting, funding, or public support has gone into it. And when that happens, every person, voter, external funder, or company looking to invest in Louisiana will have their worst fears confirmed. We are too politically corrupt and short-sighted to help ourselves. What could have been a great economic boom for South Louisiana could now cost the state a great deal of money. Consequences for spending over $500 million in unretrievable oil spill dollars and reneging on a $1.82 billion contract. This isn't just a delay. It's a message to Congress, the Corps, insurance, and investors that Louisiana no longer leads in science and planning, that we're willing to throw away our most transformative restoration effort and the billions that come with it for politics. You can't hit pause on a fully permitted, fully funded, and already under construction project and pretend it's anything other than a political decision. At a time of much uncertainty for Louisiana's budget and economy, and as Louisiana's coast continues to erode at some of the highest rates of land loss in the entire world, we would expect better of our government than playing politics with the state's money, the coastal master plan, and the economic benefits of its largest projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Richie Blake, with a Blake, 0050,
And good morning, Board. My name's Richie Blank. I live down in Empire, Louisiana, Plaquemines Parish. I've served in a number of capacities in Plaquemines. I've served as a parish council member. I operated a business there. I'm a former government employee there. And Plaquemines Parish needs the Mid-Barataria Sediment Diversion. Not building Mid-Barataria is like the equivalent of building a car without an engine. The reason why you're going to have some increased costs in the back end is because there's going to be an incredible amount of sediment deposited in the basement, some of which might have to be moved around. We could build other projects with that. But the entire West Bank of New Orleans is at jeopardy without this project. It's going to cause an incredible amount of financial hardship for an incredible amount of people. We could do better. We really can. We really need this. History is going to judge this moment in Louisiana, and we need to be very thoughtful about how we move forward. The Mississippi River has an incredible amount of power. At Neptune Pass, nature has created the world's most perfect sediment diversion. Now, that didn't stop the Corps of Engineers from deep sixing 100 barges of boulders into it in the least nuanced way possible. But there's a 12 square mile delta that's being formed there, and I encourage you to go see it, walk through it, stand on the new islands, and see what the river can do. Now, we can put that kind of sediment in the most strategic places possible, or we can continue to dump it off the continental shelf. What are we going to do as a society here? We really, really can do better. Yield.
Thank you very much. Okay, it's hard to read, M-A-O-R-E, is this Amanda? Moore? Moore, Moore at NW, okay. It's hard to read your handwriting, sorry about that.
Charles Sutcliffe's handwriting. Hi, Amanda Moore, Bachelor Wildlife Federation. You all have heard from me a few times so far in this annual plan process, and so I usually talk about the Mississippi River Gulf Outlet, and again, I want to say thank you for CPRA's leadership, continued leadership to advance those ecosystem restoration projects and work with the Corps to see us get that federal investment as well. Today, of course, I want to talk about the Mid-Barataria sediment diversion. After decades of public input and science-based planning, we are now hearing that the state can't afford Mid-Barataria. That reasoning is difficult to understand, particularly because this administration seems willing to invest $500 million in essentially nothing and walk away from potentially billions more that have been committed to Louisiana for this project. We all know that Mid-Barataria is funded through BP oil spill settlement money, specifically to address the injuries caused by the Deepwater Horizon disaster, which happened 15 years ago this week. There is no guarantee that these billions of dollars in restoration funding will come back to Louisiana in the future. If Louisiana walks away, we don't just lose our most ambitious and well-studied restoration project, we lose credibility, resources, and the chance to deliver sustainable protection to coastal communities. The truth is that the state can't afford to lose the project or the funding, the jobs, the economic opportunities that come with it. Insurers and outside investors already see that Louisiana is extremely high risk. The Coastal Master Plan is what has helped maintain confidence through its science-based framework, its track record for success with an evidence-based plan that follows through with building large-scale and highly effective projects. These efforts also show that Louisiana understands their risk and they have a plan, and that is critical to how people will afford to live here in the future. This administration stands at a crossroads with a chance to complete the largest coastal restoration project in U.S. history in a place that needs it the most. Let's not leave billions of dollars on the table. Let's finish what we started, deliver on the promise of restoration for Louisiana's people in the future. We can't afford not to.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Connor Gilbert.
Good morning. My name is Connor Gilbert. I represent the Bench Paradise program, a part of the National Wildlife Federation. We work to engage sportsmen, outdoorsmen, local community members, as well as stakeholders around critical issues with coastal restoration habitat loss. We also do a lot of work with just overall information given to these people as well. I graduated in LSU with a degree in fisheries and aquaculture, and I've also been a Baton Rouge resident for 10 years. CPRA has long led the way in doing ecological restoration projects, recreational and structural, and I believe the agency will continue doing so. But as we all know, there's no one-size-fits-all to saving Louisiana's coast. It is very vital to reconnect the Mississippi River to its floodplains and wetlands to allow the sediment to settle back out and build land. That's exactly why the Mississippi River Delta was formed in the first place. That's why I'm excited to see how the Maurepas Swamp sediment diversion is taking place. It is providing a big win for habitat and public recreation on Louisiana's largest wildlife management area. It's a big win again for sportsmen and outdoorsmen who will continue to use this area for generations to come. I do want to speak in support of Mid-Barataria sediment diversion. There's been ample time, resources, and
studies that have gone into this process, and many public support, public meetings, and due diligence for this project for decades. And it feels like it's all being pushed aside. And so now it's time to regain that public trust and talk more about it and how we can bring it all back together. Recent polls came out that show 83% of Louisiana residents are in favor for mid-Barataria sediment diversion, and that number goes up as people want to use sediment diversions, up and down the Mississippi River as well. Going back to the drawing board now will only spend more time, money, and studies, and it'll be more reductive. The reason that this was permitted and designed this way was for the maximum output of land building, but it also will be able to control the flow rates for certain areas or times of the year whenever it doesn't have the river really flowing. Mid-Barataria will build habitat and wildlife and fisheries for all Barataria Basin to use for recreational purposes and for commercial fisheries. Other problem with Mid-Barataria not going through is that all those coastal restoration projects further south of Mid-Barataria that CPRA has done, it won't be able to nourish and keep up the maintenance for those projects. The maintenance alone for projects without just leaving them out there could outweigh the ability that Mid-Barataria can provide those nourishments for those CPRA projects. Excuse me. Mid-Barataria has been discussed for over 30 years, and quite frankly, Louisiana can't wait another 30. It's time to move forward, and I want to thank you again for letting me speak.
Thank you very much. Charles Sutcliffe with
Morning. Charles Sutcliffe, National Wildlife Federation, but I'm also a 12-and-a-half-year employee of this program. And I do have some high-level comments, but first I just want to just raise to the board, all this discussion about cost. There is a guaranteed maximum price contract in place covered by oil spill funds. There's also around $370 million of contingency funds to support any cost overruns there. So I just wanted to raise that as a question as this cost conversation has gone on. But my high-level comments relate to the overall mission and project of this board. Louisiana has been in a position of national leadership when it comes to hurricane protection and natural defenses against sea level rise and storm surge. This is because, thanks to our history and geology, our problem is more advanced than the rest of the country. It is also because we experienced firsthand the extreme devastation and loss of life that results when those systems fail. After the storms of 2005, Louisiana wrote laws, created this board and a new agency, and began investing in the data, analysis, partnerships, and expertise necessary to give our coast a fighting chance. From one hurricane season to the next, and from one governor to the next, the good people at CPRA devoted themselves to coming up with the best process, the best science, and the best projects. Along the way, projects large and small got funded and built, and people across this state saw with their own eyes progress being made that made their homes safer and more sustainable. No small feat, given where we were in the days after Katrina and Rita. The job of this board is to keep that progress and focus on the big picture alive, to develop, implement, and enforce the comprehensive coastal master plan dedicated to the conviction, never again, and the fact that if we don't do this, we lose everything. So when the chairman asks you to approve a plan for next year that contains no actual intention to build the largest and most effective coastal restoration project in the master plan, when he takes this body behind closed doors to tell you that there is no state authority to implement the coastal master plan, or that it is too expensive to do what is necessary to save this coast, he is wrong. The tragedies of Katrina, Rita, and every storm since, the hard work and perseverance of a generation of people like myself who have devoted themselves to restoring and protecting as much coast as possible, the legislative intent and direction that literally created this board and agency, and the 2007, the 2012, the 2017, and the 2023 coastal master plans all say otherwise. The pursuit of this larger mission has never been easy, and frankly, the more seriously you take the problem, the more impossible it seems. But while always difficult, this mission is nevertheless essential. This true mission is also incompatible with making everyone happy, whether they're the chairman, the governor, or an oyster fisherman. To think anything less is to deliberately unlearn the hard lessons of the past, to ignore the dire projections for our future, to turn away from the mission and purpose of this board and agency, and to concede that we don't actually want to do everything in our power to restore and protect this coast. Thank you.
Thank you. Simone Malars.
My name is Simone Malaz. I am the campaign director for Restore the Mississippi River Delta. Following the devastating hurricanes of 2005, CPRA was established as the lead agency for coastal protection and restoration, ensuring sustained visibility and action within state government. As a member of this board, I trust that you recognize your importance and your role that you have, not just as a representative of a single state agency or entity, but as a steward of a coastal program that was built on 2 decades of progress and collective success. This year's nearly $2 billion annual plan, the largest in CPRA history, has the potential to mark a serious commitment to the state addressing our land loss crisis. But its success should not be measured by dollar amounts or jobs created. It should be measured by communities protected, habitats restored, and years gained to live, work, and thrive in coastal Louisiana. Mid-Barataria alone represents over $570 million of FY26 expenditures, 1/3 of the budget, yet has been noticeably absent from proactive board discussions, public presentations, and key communications. How can a project that has anchored 4 coastal master plans be excluded from public dialogue despite years of transparency and planning? Now we know that the draft EIS for Mid-Breton has also been delayed. With Mid-Barataria, Mid-Breton, and Increase Atchafalaya projects stalled or canceled, it's clear that sediment and freshwater reconnection efforts, despite major Deepwater Horizon investments, has fallen from priority or are years and years away from our landscape. Meanwhile, the FY26 plan also reflects a growing shift towards structural protection and smaller scale localized projects, moving away from the regional vision that emerged after Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. Public trust is critical to this program's success. 91% of Southeast Louisiana residents consider land loss a crisis. 93% of voters support a science-based coastal master plan. And as mentioned earlier, over 80% support sediment diversions. Louisianians want action. They do not want abandonment of the projects designed to protect their future. The continued uncertainty and lack of transparency around Mid-Barataria risks unraveling 2 decades of coastal leadership and public support and undermines investments from Deepwater Horizon as we mark the 15th anniversary this weekend. We strongly urge CPRA and this board to continue forward with Mid-Barataria as designed, permitted, and funded.
Thank you, Ms. Malars. Jordan Phillips.
Good morning. My name is Jordan Phillips, and I'm here with Restore the Mississippi River Delta and as a lifelong Louisiana resident. Through this year's annual plan process, CPRA has received hundreds of public comments about the importance of the coast and the science-backed coastal master plan. Today, we're delivering over 500 more messages to Louisiana's coastal leaders that speak to the importance of robust and inclusive public engagement in the planning process, maintaining funding for the coast, and support for urgent implementation of impactful, sustainable, and science-based projects. These messages complement the results of the most recent poll on our coastal issues, showing that 93% of Louisiana voters approve of the state having a comprehensive plan to deal with land loss using the latest science. Let's make sure we listen to the people of Louisiana as we move ahead with the implementation of this annual plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chris Batuso.
think I might need to change my last name to Zarang. Seems like y'all get that one right. First, I want to thank. My name is Chris Macaluso. I'm a resident of Baton Rouge. I worked at CPRA for a while. I've been on the Governor's Coastal Advisory Commission, hard to believe, about 12 years now. I have spent my entire life fishing in the Barataria Basin, the Atchafalaya Basin, and other coastal areas. I want to say, first off, thanks to CPRA for doing such a diligent job in developing the Atchafalaya Basin Master Plan. Aside from coastal land loss and the opportunities that that's costing recreational fishermen and the concern about the projects on the coast, I hear from recreational fishermen in the Atchafalaya Basin constantly about habitat decline, fisheries production decline, the way the water moves. And the fact that we're taking such a serious look at engaging the public on that, working with the Corps of Engineers and a number of stakeholders, I think is promising. And the fact that we can get some production back into areas of the basin where the water and the hydrology has changed over the last several decades. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come here and talk today. I've talked about this subject many times. But along with the other commenters today, I want to talk about the Mid-Barataria diversion and the impacts to fish, wildlife, and coastal communities. I want to first point out there is no project that can be built instead of a diversion if the goal of CPRA is to use the full extent of the resources available to try to repair the Barataria Basin. Dredge in place projects are great. I think the long distance sediment pipeline is a great project. I think the Barrier Island projects have all been good projects. But those projects and the dredges don't utilize the suspended sediment in the river or the nutrients in the water needed to build and sustain brackish, fresh, and even salt marshes that are so desperately needed for fish, waterfowl habitat production and also protection of our coastal communities. The Mid-Barataria project will improve, and this is in the EIS, will improve habitat for numerous fish and ducks, including redfish, green-winged teal, mottled ducks, gray ducks, white shrimp, menhaden, mullet, others, all important cultural, commercial, and recreational species. Ultimately, I believe it will improve habitat for oysters basin-wide. I have fished the Barataria Basin for more than 45 years. I've fished Golden Meta, Grand Isle, Leeville, Buras, Lafitte, Venice, long enough to remember there were oyster reefs across this basin, not just in a small band near Empire or close to the toe of the levee in Golden Meadow. There were extensive oyster reefs in Caminada Bay, north of Cooper Bell, all around Four Bayous Pass, and those are all gone. And it's not fresh water, but the consequence of not enough fresh water mixing with salt water that ended production on those reefs. I'm not so hung up on how many CFS a diversion moves. The reason Mid-Barataria is designed at 75,000 CFS right now is because that's what the best modeling and extensive examinations produce. I do want to emphasize that the idea that dredging alone is enough to restore function to this estuary and improve fisheries is not the truth. Dredging projects that cannot benefit from the sediment from a diversion will be significantly less productive, have a much shorter lifespan, and could ultimately be more expensive. I've spoken with numerous fisheries biologists who currently work for our Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, other states' departments of wildlife and fisheries, and those who have retired from our Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, and they have told me consistently that the fisheries in the Barataria Basin have declined. The remaining habitat is rapidly collapsing. Without some kind of connection with the river, those biologists believe redfish limits will have to be reduced again in the next 10 years. That's just one species suffering from this profound habitat loss. Whatever this agency decides to do moving forward, please understand that the reasons projects like Mid-Barataria have always been part of any serious effort to restore our coast is because they work to restore habitat, and there is no way to mimic the processes that built our coast without using the river. Coastal Louisiana is the most productive fishery, was once the most productive wintering ground for waterfowl in the continental United States because of the Mississippi River, not in spite of it. The more we move away from the river being part of this delta, the less productive our state becomes. Thank you.
Thanks. Liz Russell or Russell?
Good morning, I'm Liz Russell. Thanks for checking how you say it. Yeah, Liz Russell, I'm with Environmental Defense Fund. I'm also a homeowner and a landowner in multiple parishes across Southeast Louisiana, across South Central Louisiana. As we know, but I just want to ground us in this because it's been mentioned by a number of the speakers here today, the Mississippi River built most of Southern Louisiana. Its purpose was to get to the Gulf by the shortest, steepest route, and the natural process was always that it would build land until it found that new route. Our ability to continue to support our communities and economies across this state lies in being able to reconnect and reintroduce the river, to reestablish the freshwater to saltwater gradient that exists and support fisheries across that gradient. It is critical that we do so and that we do so in multiple ways. As I hear today and as we talk about the prospects of shifting away from not only Mid-Barataria, but Mid-Breton, from the Atchafalaya freshwater reintroduction, all of those projects are cornerstones to the master plan. And I fear that the state is shifting away from regional comprehensive leadership on science-based decision-making and project prioritization. That concerns me not only for my ability to continue to raise my family in South Louisiana, but it also concerns me as I think about every investor who's making decisions in our state. When I see any industrial facility moving forward, and I know that their cost-benefit analyses have included storm surge dynamics that include the master plan over time. When I see how insurers or mortgage lenders are underwriting investments here or considering not doing so. All of those decisions hinge on also the decisions that we're making here today. I also have concerns as a taxpayer about the financial liability that exists with the state if the state does fully walk away from Mid-Barataria. Not only the $600 million that's already been spent on the project, but also the risk from the contractors who are on this project that have hired people, they've bought equipment, they've had piles manufactured, they don't go back on a shelf somewhere, there's no other project like this in the world. They've not taken other projects. I worry as a taxpayer that we could be liable in our state's general fund, since the Deepwater Horizon settlement money cannot go to those things, would be at risk here. I think we're in a place where we need to acknowledge that for a small subset of species and fisheries in particular geographies, there could be expected and maybe are expected negative impacts. However, the Coastal Master Plan explicitly provides funding and support to foster that transition from the near-term challenges to the improvements for the health of the fisheries across the basin writ large. There's $380 million in mitigation funding that also goes away if this project goes away. That $380 million helps to address, of course, the impacts of Mid-Barataria, but also the impacts that those communities are already seeing, helping to elevate homes, elevate roads, bulkheads, buyouts for people who want them in the area adjacent, but also support our shrimpers who are competing with imports, coming back from each disaster. New marketing materials, new refrigeration systems, bigger boats that can go out in deeper waters. All of these things are really critical. So I really want to ask you here today, do you believe in the role of the state as investing in regional comprehensive restoration? And how do we ensure that we are leveraging all the resources at our disposal, leveraging the power of the river to build land and maintain all of the assets across our communities and economies? Thank you.
Thank you, Katie Daniel.
Thank you. I'm Katie G. Daniel with the Environmental Defense Fund. In August 2023, when the state broke ground on Mid-Barataria, they were advancing the most innovative, largest-scale ecosystem restoration project in history, placing Louisiana squarely as a global leader when it comes to coastal restoration. Then, the state was following through on inclusive, research-driven processes that included a diverse array of stakeholders, weighing benefits against odds, valuing the needs of the present and future, and looking clear-eyed at the trajectory of land loss, storm surge, and the vulnerability that threatens the economic and ecological foundation of coastal Louisiana. Then, CBRE worked across stakeholder groups, and through public meetings to arrive at a suite of solutions for coastal Louisiana anchored by the Mid-Barataria Sediment Diversion. The state was investing in coastal Louisiana's future, and the construction CBRE plan for Mid-Barataria was poised to create over 3,000 jobs, bring in $1.8 billion of sales for Plaquemines Parish alone, and generate $2.8 billion in regional sales across a 5-parish region, not to mention the decades of ongoing enhanced storm protection the project would provide for these communities. Today, however, behind closed doors, the state is only catering to a single stakeholder group, one that has already been engaged extensively, been at the table during discussions about the most promising ways to protect and restore coastal Louisiana. Despite the engagement over the years, the private settlements with BP that this group received for millions of dollars, and the $53 million in planned mitigation money to improve their gear, vessels, and businesses made possible by the implementation of Mid-Barataria, this stakeholder group maintains that their present is more important than everyone else's future. Why does this one group supersede the decades of extensive research, public planning, public comments, and permitting done through the work and the voices of many? Governor Landry, Chairperson Dove, and the administration is catering to this group over the rest of Louisiana, including our future generations. They're taking away both near and long-term economic, social, and ecosystem benefits for the many so that a few can hold on to their current reality, even as it is washing away before their very eyes.
Thank you. Rebecca, Trish.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Rebecca Trish. I'm with Louisiana Wildlife Federation. We turned in comments during the comment period. I also want to thank you for the attention and commitment to White Lake restoration. It is important for not just habitat, but protection for that area. I was asked to present comments from someone who could not be here. Kevin Crossan is a resident and licensed charter captain in Plaquemines Parish. And he cannot be here today to comment on the importance of Mid-Barataria sediment diversion, so he sent his comments with someone who could speak, and I'm doing so. So on behalf of Kevin Crossan, I'm saying that I am on the water today in the Barataria Basin, guiding out-of-town folks to catch redfish and enjoy what's left of our declining marsh. It's here in this basin that I see land disappearing weekly from what was once a vibrant estuary. My clients are asking me why is all the land disappearing. My answer is simple. I tell them we no longer have the freshwater sediment flowing from the one source that created our delta, the Mississippi River. We have a chance in front of us to rebuild, balance, and maintain our estuary. This delta was built from the ebbs and flows that were distributed naturally from the river into the bayous that flowed brackish marsh to saltwater marsh. This was a land building balance until the river was corralled by levees that cut off our distributaries. There was a time you could not see the Gulf from the bridge in Empire. Ask residents and visitors if they can remember driving to Lake Hermitage down the gravel road tunneled by live oaks. The land is gone, and the live oak trees are dead. The next swamp we will lose is the Jean Lafitte National Park. Plaquemines Parish government is not properly representing all its constituents on this matter. Parish government and other naysayers are proposing a smaller diversion, siphon, or dredging. This would only serve to keep salinity levels at what is needed for oyster growth and not land creation. Land creation is needed to protect life and property. In my experience, smaller projects like siphon outflows can be easily shut down or not maintained, and dredging alone does not replace the land we have lost. CPRA's recent stop work order finally openly demonstrates that CPRA is no longer supports the Mid-Barataria Sediment Project. It is a shame that this move appears to so heavily be influenced by politics. I believe from what I have witnessed disappear in my lifetime that the Mid-Barataria Sediment Diversion Project is the answer. I believe if the state and local governments keep fighting against this project, we will all lose in the end. And that is a statement from Kevin Crossan. Thank you.
Ethan Longstone.
Thank you so much, members. My name is Ethan Malasa, and I represent the Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana. You know us as CRCL, so thank you so much for having us to be able to provide comment on the annual plan. The first thing that I want to do is go ahead and applaud CPRA for the work that they've done in the years to provide for coastal Louisiana. I don't exaggerate when I say that CPRA is one of the most, if not the most efficient agency, sorry, Tyler Bosworth, in state government that we have. So I definitely wanted to applaud them before I get into my comments. We've heard a lot about the Mid-Barataria sediment diversion. Many of my friends have come before. I'm not going to belabor the points that you've heard today. It is vital that we have a reconnection from the Mississippi River to our wetlands. CRCL was founded in 1988. In 1989, we produced a major report that was calling for reintroduction of the river to the wetlands. So sediment diversion has been something that our organization was founded on and continues to fight here in our 36th year. So I don't want to belabor the point. I know I'm probably one of the last comment people to say, but Mid-Barataria is and can be the solution to major issues that's facing the Barataria Basin. We heard it's the linchpin, we've heard it's the cornerstone, all the terms that they've used is true. However, there are other things in the annual plan that I want to address today, not just the Mid-Barataria sediment diversion. The first one is being upper river diversions. I want to continue pushing down the truth that diversions work, freshwater and sediment. And so those upper river diversions that are in the plan and the annual plan and master plan, we definitely want to continue supporting that. There's support from the public in those areas as well as the officials who represent them are supporting this. So we need that in the upper basin as well. We also want to talk about hydrologic restoration. So things like the violet siphon and other options that we have to introduce fresh water into the marshes and into the wetlands that we have. And then finally, my last point that I want to make is to continue the success of CPRA, it's vital that we have transparency and public input in everything that we do. CPRA has done a great job in all the projects before of doing this, and we just encourage them to continue doing that as we move forward. Thank you for the time to be able to share those thoughts.
Thank you very much. Christy Trail?
Good afternoon. Yes, Christy Trail.
Got that right.
I'm the Executive Director of Pontchartrain Conservancy. You may know us by our former name, Lake Pontchartrain Basin Foundation. We changed our organization name 5 years ago to better reflect our broad scope of work, and our new tagline really speaks to what we do, science for our coast. Scientific fact drives everything we do. We are leaders of evidence-based, gold standard science about the current and future state of our environment. Our actions are based on solid data and integrity, and this is how CPRA has operated in my time in this position. We are pleased to see the annual plan includes many projects in the Pontchartrain Basin, including the Lake Borgne Marsh Creation Project, which will build 2,700 acres of marsh and be completed this calendar year. I want to speak now a bit on process. Back in January, Governor Landry posted on his social media accounts, "We cannot claim to be a government that is of, by, and for the people when we are hiding votes from the American people. Total transparency in government is not only needed, but necessary." And I could not agree more. Transparency in government processes is crucial for several reasons. Firstly, transparency ensures that government officials and institutions are held accountable for their actions. Transparency also builds trust between the government and its citizens. When people can see how decisions are made and how resources are allocated, they are more likely to trust their leaders and the system. Lastly, transparent processes can lead to more efficient governance. When procedures are clear and open, it reduces the chances of bureaucratic delays and promotes better decision-making. Thus, it is not clear why there has been a lack of transparency around the new proposed ideas we've only heard in the media. We heard in the media, we want diversions, just a better way to do that. What is the better way? What is the exact plan? All that has been said publicly is that the diversion will be smaller, and there is a want to focus on dredging. However, there are no details at all, no plan, or even an executive summary that anyone in the public has seen. We've heard suggestions that a smaller diversion would suffice. However, the current scale of the Mid-Barataria sediment diversion is necessary to effectively address the magnitude of Louisiana's coastal land loss. Reducing the project's scale would significantly diminish its effectiveness in combating land loss and protecting our culture and coastal communities. The timely advancement of the Mid-Barataria sediment diversion project is imperative for safeguarding Louisiana's coastline and communities. Delays compromise hurricane preparedness, hinder restoration efforts, and reduce the project's potential impact. Transparent communication from CPRA and adherence to the project's intended scale are crucial for its success. We also heard in the media, the land bridge from Port Sulphur to Lafitte will build 23 miles of shoreline and 6,900 acres of land for $900 million, much less expensive than Mid-Barataria sediment diversion. All projects in the Coastal Master Plan are designed to work together as researched, vetted, and planned. Without the Mid-Barataria sediment diversion, the land bridge will deteriorate over time. Eventually, this will cost much more than enacting the Coastal Master Plan as permitted, planned, and budgeted. I urge you all to consider only passing the annual plan today if it is to include the Keystone project as designed, the Mid-Barataria sediment diversion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and Ryan Lambert.
My name is Captain Ryan Lambert. The majority of people in this room have been involved with me to go to the diversions on the east side of the river that work, that are building land at a relatively low cost. 83%. You can't get 83% of the people to agree on the color of this table, but 83% of the people say they want the diversion. Because we did such a good job, CPRA over the years, going and being transparent, teaching people, going all throughout the state with meetings showing how it can be done, why it should be done. Now we got the confidence of the people, 83% want it. We got a handful of politicians that get in the back room, and when they come out, they say, you know, we're gonna tell you what you're gonna do and you will like it. If it wasn't political, we went from 1.2 billion to 2.9 billion for the cost of this project. $1.7 billion difference. If it wasn't political, we'd go renegotiate, but all these contractors that have spent millions and millions of dollars to get ready to do this project, hired people, bought boats, local businesses buying $1 million worth of boats. People got concrete piles, millions of dollars worth. We have a good negotiating stance right now to try to get those costs down to alleviate that problem. Right now, we're gonna spend $800 million, we're gonna get nothing, absolutely nothing. You wanna talk about what happens when a project goes away? Spanish Pass diversion, $14 million project, a diversion. Illinois Augusta says, no, we don't wanna operate it, we're gonna do away with it. Politics got in the way again. And what is the result of that? All the habitat, all the land from Venice to all the way to Port Sulphur is gone. The water is on the levee. At 24 foot of water in my lodge for Hurricane Katrina. I watch shrimpers go deep water and go get in their boat in the parking lot every day at high tide. That's what happens. Now, we put in a big ridge restoration project at Spanish Pass, but without feeding it, it's gonna subside. Louisiana is sinking. It's not washing away, it's subsiding. All the way to St. Charles Parish, St. John Parish, the swamps are sinking. And the river's the only thing that's gonna save it. I promise you can build all the bridges you want. We're gonna be building them again. Our great grandchildren are gonna be building the same ones again. And you say, okay, it's gonna stop the salt water from coming in. We have instruments to stop the salt water from coming in. And the very same people that are stopping this project won't let Davis Pond run. We're running it for 1,200 CFS all these years. As it all washed away, the water's going, salt water is going all the way to Lake Buff. The whole estuary is void of aquatic vegetation, void of ducks. The catch fishermen can't even use their cans because they're so full of barnacles. We have the project to fix it. But now we're gonna build a giant land bridge. We've got the thing to keep the salt water. Open it up. Or we can negotiate the project and let this project go. Have the contractors. You know, if it wasn't politics, I guarantee we'd be negotiating and getting this thing done.
Thank you. Okay, with that, any members would like to discuss anything? Any members? With that, we'll have a motion.
I move to adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year 26 annual plan as drafted.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, with no further discussion, any discussion? We now proceed to vote the adopter. All those in favor? Okay, there was a motion and a second to adopt the resolution approving the fiscal year 26 plan as drafted. Is there any discussion? With no further, any discussion? With no further discussion, we will now proceed to vote to adopt the resolution approving FY 26 annual plan as drafted. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. There's no one opposed. With that, the motion, the FY 26 annual plan as drafted is approved. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, public. And thank you everyone for their input. And now we will proceed to the executive session. We have to have a vote, a motion to proceed. Mr. Daldo, into executive session.
All right, Mr. Dowd made the motion to move into executive session, seconded by Mr. Jordan.
Second by Mr. Jordan. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, a voice vote, according to our attorney. And I want to thank Mr. Bourgeois for correcting me on this.
Chairman Rose,
Yes.
Mr. McMillan, Mr. Bos, Secretary Bosworth,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Alford,
Yes.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Congressman Dow, Mr. Jordan, Mr. Bourgeois, Mr. Hidalgo, Mr. Cargill, Mr. Lane.
Okay, we have a forum and we will move into executive session, so we'll ask everyone, to, please leave, and thank you all very much. You're welcome to come back right after the executive session, and, please Mr. Jules,